Hello, Jacksonites! As teased at the end of my last video, it's really funny where inspiration strikes. And like at one point, you can be thinking, I think I want to do this and this and this. And then something completely unexpected pops up and hits you in the face. And you're just like, no, I want to do that. So you read the title right. Along with Jackie Boy here from BigJackFilms.
Hello there.
Today, me and Jackie Boy will be doing a re-ranking of the Star Wars films. Why am I doing this, you are probably asking? Well, it's for a few reasons. One of which is because, admittedly, now through no fault of anybody, I'm not going to name any names, but I just haven't really been all that happy with the original Star Wars ranking video I did back in May of 2024. And having rewatched the franchise again from beginning to end, some of my thoughts have changed and my ranking of the franchise has flip-flopped around quite a bit. But also, I want to get this video out before The Mandalorian and Grogu comes out in theaters so that I don't have to go watch it. And also to celebrate the release of Jackie Boy's long-fabled Star Wars prequel trilogy reviews, the inspiration just hit me out of nowhere, and I'm just like, yeah, I want to do something Star Wars related. I don't want to wait until maybe May or December of 2026 because I really don't want to watch Mandalorian and Grogu, and I just want to do this right now. So, yes, indeed. Now, I am going to be including mostly the same written speech that I had at the beginning of my old video, but I have expanded on this speech, so I have some new material that I want to discuss, much of which is both stuff that I wanted to say back then, but I just forgot to include it because, full disclosure, I actually wrote that script 2 hours before we started that video. But also some things have happened since I've done that video that I also want to touch upon and discuss briefly in this speech too. So, without further ado, icky goo.
Oh!
I'm going to jump right into this. So, pardon any stutters, pardon any interruptions. Let's just get this going in one go. Science fiction, a genre that is arguably one of the 3 or 4 largest genres in the entire history of cinema. As sci-fi, no pun intended, has a vast galaxy of various aspects of media in which it is explored and told. Novels like The Invisible Man and War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells, and the original Starship Troopers novels by Robert A. Heinlein, I think that's how you pronounce it. Comics like Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon, don't even. Radio programs like the infamous Orson Welles reading of War of the Worlds from the 1930s. And, of course, film and television. And also, no pun intended, there is a vast galaxy of concepts that have been introduced and explored in various stories in science fiction. Space exploration like Firefly, alien invasions like Earth versus the flying saucers and invaders from Mars, wormhole teleportations, I hate that word, like Contact, space operas like The X from Outer Space, Futurama, and Buck Rogers in the 25th century, visiting alien worlds like Pitch Black, and like space itself, there is a near limitless variety of concepts to explore in the realm of science fiction. Quick side note, rest in peace, the actor who played Buck Rogers. Sci-fi is also universally compatible, no pun intended again, with most, if not all other genres. You can combine with sci-fi in any other genre and it can work. You can get a sci-fi comedy like Galaxy Quest, a sci-fi horror film like The Thing or Alien, sci-fi action like Starship Troopers or Aliens, sci-fi drama like Gattaca, or sci-fi satire like RoboCop. Like comedy being universally compatible, it seems sci-fi can be the most diverse and all-inclusive genre of all. In the world of science fiction, in my opinion, there are 4 franchises that are the largest pillars that support the entire sci-fi genre. And all 4 of these have some of the most dedicated and largest fan bases in the history of film and television. And 3 of these have done many things to progress and redefine the sci-fi genre in and of themselves over the decades. The first 3 being Star Trek, Stargate, and Battlestar Galactica. And all 4 of these franchises have very similar themes: large space battles, ensemble casts, lots of various different alien species, a ton of fantastical futuristic technology that we can only dream of having in the real world, utilizing novels, comics, and video games to expand their lore beyond the shows and films, tons of both practical and digital special effects, lots of action, and also metaphysical and psychological debates. And despite these many similarities, all of them still are very distinctly different in their own way. Star Trek is hyper realistic and scientific. Stargate deals with a lot of planet exploration and wormhole travel with a bunch of heavy militaristic themes, a la the original Starship Troopers novels. And while Battlestar Galactica does seem to borrow heavily from both Star Trek and Stargate, it still morphs itself into essentially Star Trek mixed with Platoon and the Terminator. All 4 of these franchises as well have star in their title, an obvious sign of the fact that these franchises were a product of the 60s and 70s obsession with space. But the 4th franchise, in my opinion, is simultaneously the greatest and my personal favorite, but it is also one of the most controversial and divisive franchises in the history of cinema. And that franchise is, of course, the one that takes place a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Yes, indeed. Star Wars, without a shadow of a doubt, as mentioned, is my favorite sci-fi franchise. Admittedly, though, it is an odd one because it's not really very science fiction heavy when compared to the other 3 big pillars, as it has many fantasy and mystical elements, but with it carrying many of the same themes as the other 3. Futuristic technology, a bunch of different species of aliens, a bunch of spaceship battles. While undoubtedly Star Trek, yes, is the oldest franchise of the 4, and surely has had some influence on Star Wars, to me, the Star Wars franchise is the most iconic, entertaining, and again, my favorite of the big 4. To give a little context, the original film that started it all, simply titled Star Wars, retroactively retitled Star Wars Episode 4: A New Hope, directed by George Lucas, was released to the world May 25th, 1977 by 20th Century Fox, with a modest budget of $11 million and very little confidence from its own studio and other contemporaries, became a huge surprise smash hit at the box office, making $410 million in its initial box office run. However, upon the several re-releases the film has had over the years, it has been drastically increased to $775 million. Damn. All this success has spawned a massive franchise of soon-to-be 16 feature films, both theatrical, direct-to-DVD, and even TV, several animated and live-action TV shows, as well as numerous video games, novels, and comic books. Undoubtedly, Star Wars is easily one of my favorite franchises in the history of cinema, despite me ranking it relatively low in my top 15 favorite franchises video back at the beginning of 2022. I've been a fan since I was around 3 or 4 years old. My father owned the 90s special edition VHS box set, the one that was colored gold and black, as well as the Phantom Menace, also on VHS. And I watched them all multiple times, many, many times over the course of my early childhood. Dad would also purchase Attack of the Clones on VHS as soon as it was released, and I absolutely loved that film, especially since it was the most current and newest Star Wars film that was released while I was a conscious human. Yes, I was technically 2 when Phantom Menace was released, but I didn't see it until later on. A bit later, Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, was released, which I saw in theaters with my uncle, it being my first Star Wars film I saw in theaters. But as I grew older, my love for Star Wars seemed to stagnate, however. Partially due to some bad personal issues I went through in a lot of my early teen years, as well as just having many other interests that became my main focus, namely superheroes, Godzilla, Kamen Rider, and Ultraman. I did, though, keep up some minor interest in Star Wars over the years, namely receiving some toy lightsabers, way shittier than this, catching up on some of the few animated projects like the 2003 Clone Wars series and the 2008 TCW film, both of which temporarily reignited my love for Star Wars for a couple months each. And of course, I was obscenely shocked when in 2012, George Lucas sold the Star Wars franchise to, of all studios, the Walt Disney Corporation for a whopping $4 billion. To quote my dad upon learning this, must be nice. Needless to say, I was shocked and kind of saddened. 2013 and 2014 would be the lowest point for my interest in Star Wars, as I actually cannot recall a single time I watched a single Star Wars film during those 2 years. Then in 2015, the first big trailer for Episode 7 was dropped, and I was intrigued. But I was also still skeptical regarding Star Wars' future with Disney. But in early 2016, after I had purchased the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy on DVD, I finally saw Episode 7 while I was babysitting my sister. And upon completion, Star Wars was back full fucking force. No pun intended for me. After that, I absolutely lived and breathed Star Wars. And over the course of 2016 and most of 2017, leading up to the release of Star Wars Episode 8, I would purchase multiple lightsabers, all of them now broken and lost, studied the classical forms of lightsaber combat, Shicho, Makashi, Surisu, Ataru, Jar-Kai, Shien, Djem-So, Nyman, Vaapad, and Juyo, purchased the complete 2008 TCW series on DVD and binged the living hell out of it. And I did several deep dives into Star Wars lore via the YouTube channels Star Wars Theory, Evan Nova 95, Gensarai 1, and especially the Stupendous Wave. And I also contributed some lore and lightsaber combat knowledge to some of Jackie Boy's videos, namely his top 10 sword fights video, his original run of original trilogy Star Wars reviews, and obviously contributed some voice work in his recent reviews of the prequel trilogy. But after the release of Episode 8, my interest in Star Wars dropped off quite significantly. This was due to a number of things. One, franchise fatigue. Two, a number of disappointing products, one after the other, coming out of Disney. And three, the largest and most crippling flaw, the Star Wars fan base, heavy bunny ears, itself. Now, surely we all have experienced toxicity in various franchises that we all are fans of. But when I say that the Star Wars fan base is the absolute nastiest, pettiest, whiniest, most toxic, entitled, infuriating bunch of gatekeeping, bitchy, big babies in the history of cinema, I mean it with every ounce of my heart, soul, and being. Now, there are other franchises that have horrible fan bases. Terminator, Marvel and DC, Godzilla. There's probably a couple others. Halloween. But in my opinion, the Star Wars franchise has the most insufferable fan base of any franchise you could think of. If I had $1 for any and every time I've heard someone say the original trilogy is the only good Star Wars, everything else is garbage, I'd be rich enough to buy Star Wars from Disney and never release it again. To be somewhat fair, I do understand some of the grievances the fan base has regarding on how Disney is treating the Star Wars franchise, its characters, and the fan base itself. Before Disney took over, as previously mentioned, Star Wars has had literally decades of books, board games, video games, and comic books expanding on the lore of the Star Wars universe. Prequels to the prequels with the Old Republic era, like Knights of the Old Republic. Sequels to the original trilogy, like Dark Empire. In-between stories for the prequels and original trilogy, like the Jedi Apprentice series. Anything you can imagine to expand on the lore. And when Disney took over, all of that, books, comics, and video games, was rendered non-canon and flushed down the shitter. I was for a long time, and still am in many ways, very disappointed, as this meant that we would never see any adaptations of many fan-favorite stories, namely the Darth Bane trilogy, the New Jedi Order era post-Return of the Jedi, the Yuuzhan Vong, and the tales of Darth Krayt and Cade Skywalker, and the rise of the One Sith Order. A gargantuan amount of Star Wars material to be adapted to the big screen, now rendered non-canon and essentially void. It's very sad and is a huge shame. I also am aware that some ideas have been plucked out of Legends continuity, as it's now called, and have introduced heavily watered-down versions of them to Disney canon. Namely, Kanan Jarrus from Star Wars Rebels being a messy amalgamation of the characters of Rom Koda from The Force Unleashed and Kyle Katarn from the New Jedi Order era. And the overall plotline of the sequel trilogy inadvertently ending up becoming a messy amalgamation of the Darth Kaitis storyline and the Dark Empire storyline. So I do agree with many people saying it's a big shame that Disney refuses to accept all this previous lore and content outside the films and TV shows, and instead wipes it away and replaces it with less interesting and engaging lore. It comes off like a huge bureaucratic and corporate scheme to pay George Lucas as little as possible for royalties, which is very off-putting and, again, sad. That leading into another issue with Disney miserably underusing, misusing, and outright killing off many of the beloved OG characters in shocking, insulting, and infuriating ways, and replacing these beloved characters again with bland, uninteresting, and lesser versions, just to again avoid paying George Lucas any more royalties than what they absolutely have to. I also do agree with a couple other issues fans have with Disney, but I will address those in just a minute. But outside of this, I absolutely hate the Star Wars fan base, especially in recent years, like with the release of The Rise of Skywalker, The Book of Boba Fett, and the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. The fan base seems to go out of their way to unleash a gargantuan amount of whiny, petty, nitpicky hate, 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 letting the hate flow through them, through their keypads. Nowadays, unfortunately, it seems like it's cooler to hate Star Wars and nitpick and tear the hell out of anything and everything Star Wars related than it is to like and enjoy it. Ever since the special edition release back in 1997, so much of the fan base has been extremely unhappy with seemingly any decision made for the franchise. The special editions, the prequels, the TCW series, and especially the sequel trilogy, there has been a gargantuan amount of entitled, bitchy, nasty, spiteful hate, many of it stemming from many fans whining about their favorite fan theories not being either acknowledged or confirmed, or their favorite characters not being utilized the way they exactly want them to be, or their ungodly high expectations not being met 150,000%. AKA, taking a page from Jackie Boy, you're typey McTurd turds. All of this entitlement, pettiness, and spite has quite honestly ruined a majority of the franchise for me, and is the reason I haven't seen hardly anything in the Star Wars franchise since season 1 of The Mandalorian, outside of the first 2 episodes of Obi-Wan. Similar to my DCEU video in a way, I also do want to throw some more shade towards the studio, more specifically certain people whom now officially have been dethroned, but still this certain person was making major decisions for the Star Wars franchise, demeaning, downplaying, and downright insulting the very fan base that supports this massive franchise, and also shoving and cramming the incredibly forced, annoying, and unenjoyable woke SJW agenda down our throats. And when we voice our distaste and unsatisfaction with these choices, many higher-ups in Lucasfilm would lash back with accusations, namely being either entitled, racist, or even sexist. Which, while some of these people have certainly been guilty of such, namely the whole racial slandering towards the main actress in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, of which Ewan McGregor himself stepped in and told the haters to essentially shut the fuck up. Regardless, many of these complaints do stem from many fans just being either uninterested or unsatisfied with what Disney shells out to us. And after 12 years of refusing to stop acting like this, in my opinion, the franchise is quite possibly at its lowest point, especially having sunk to copying Star Wars fan films shot for shot just to churn out pointless and unnecessary content that nobody wants. And as a result, several thousand diehard Star Wars fans have completely checked out. A big piece of evidence that shows this being the trailer for the upcoming Mandalorian and Grogu film having only 10 million views in 3 or 4 months and having only 146,000 likes. Probably is a little bit more. I have wrote this a couple weeks ago. But the point being, as opposed to the main trailer for The Force Unleashed having 112 million views and 813,000 likes. So after only a little over 10 years into the Disney era, obviously the enthusiasm for Star Wars has dropped off quite significantly. Now, to also be fair in favor of the fan base, I do acknowledge and appreciate that in recent years, many fans and opinions have softened towards the prequel trilogy. Many people coming to their defense, citing fond and nostalgic memories and genuine praise for their stories, characters, action scenes, music, and such. And also coming to accept the TCW animated series as a great supplement to the prequel trilogy. While granted, I do believe this to be semi-toxic in and of itself, and being a sad turn in and of itself, due to more than likely many of these being disgruntled Disney haters being forced to accept previously rejected content as the lesser of two evils, like a lot of Halloween fans treat Rob Zombie's Halloween films with the release of Halloween Ends. Surely still, many of the new defenders have genuine good intentions with their new praise. Jackie Boy being one of them. But despite all of this division and strife, Star Wars still resonates with me on an extremely personal level. Obviously. Two Star Wars films I consider to be some of my favorite films of all time, and the TCW series does still reign as my all-time favorite TV show. And since it's been nearly 7 years since we last saw a Star Wars film in theaters, I feel like the time is now right to reevaluate the franchise and rank all 12 films of the main franchise with a little extra from worst to best. We will, of course, be talking about the original trilogy, the prequel and sequel trilogy, as well as both Star Wars anthology films, Rogue One and Solo, the 2008 TCW film, and to change things up a bit, we will also be including the 2003 Genndy Tartakovsky Clone Wars micro-series. Mostly because combined together, it does make a solid just over 2-hour movie. We will not be including The Mandalorian and Grogu purely due to disinterest. The 2 Ewok films and the holiday special also will not be included, mainly because they're extremely hard to find and also of incredible little interest. Also, I just haven't seen them. And we will also not be including any of the TV shows for 3 reasons. 1, that's its own list in and of itself. 2, I have not seen a lot of it. I still haven't seen seasons 2 or 3 of The Mandalorian, The Book of Boba Fett, Ahsoka, the rest of Obi-Wan, the last 2 seasons of TCW, The Bad Batch, the last 2 seasons of Rebels, Star Wars Visions, and especially neither hide nor hair of Star Wars Resistance, The Acolyte, or Andor. No. And leading into the third and main reason is I'm just not interested in anything else that Star Wars has to offer in terms of the shows, except for finishing Obi-Wan and maybe checking out Ahsoka. Not to sound like a gatekeeper myself, but I'm also not going to lie. Nothing that Disney has shelled out since Star Wars Episode 9 has even remotely interested me. Partially due to some crippling choices that continue to drive me away from the franchise. But the fact of the matter is, I find so much Disney Star Wars content nowadays. Oh, Skeleton Crew, I also have not seen because I keep fucking forgetting that exists, just like everybody else. But yeah, I just find so much of Disney Star Wars content to be pointless. TCW ended on a pretty solid note with the original 5th season finale, leaving the lost missions and the fabled 7th season feeling unnecessary and pointless. The Bad Batch and Rebels, and especially Resistance, to me, look either pointless or utterly boring as sin. The Book of Boba Fett also looks pointless due to Boba Fett having been proven to be not nearly as interesting as a character outside his cool costume and weapons. Andor being essentially Star Wars Game of Thrones from the little snippets I've seen, of which I have zero interest in watching. And also being an entire show expanding on a character that we all know, whatever happens to him in the show, he meets an untimely end at the end of Rogue One, leaving the show to feel uninteresting and, say it with me, pointless. And lastly, the Acolyte looks like uber feminazi, anti-man, boring, uninteresting, utter dog shit. No thanks, I'm good. So with fellow Star Wars mega fan Jackie Boy here, having finished up his own retrospective on the Star Wars prequel trilogy, and in an attempt to right a previous flub and beat The Mandalorian and Grogu before it's shit into theaters, I would not be surprised if that movie flops. Join us as we re-rank the definitive Star Wars saga from worst to best.
Wow, 31 minutes. My God.
Anything to add?
Well, listen, I've said everything I've had to say in my saga reviews of how Star Wars for me is not just, one of my favorite film series, but also just a matter of, like, it's what got me to make movies. I respect everything George Lucas has done. I've never really hated the prequels. I grew up with the prequels when they came out in theaters. I was privileged to see the original trilogy special edition in theater, so I'm one of the last few generations. Although Lucasfilm did announce that next year, February, they are re-releasing A New Hope for its 50th anniversary. And from what I'm hearing, the whole original trilogy once a month in its unaltered state. It's going to be completely restored of the original theatrical releases from 1977 to 1983, which is very interesting. So I'm excited for that. But then, we got that. And then in May, we have Starfighter, which actually doesn't sound too bad. Starfighter sounds pretty good. Tom Cruise apparently directed a scene for that. So, all right. But yeah, I've said everything I've had to say with the prequels. And I have to give a huge thank you to Nick here for just providing some really good voices for the project. It came out immensely well. It's a huge success on our end. And, oh God, I've been getting so many people saying, when are you going to do episodes 7 through 9? I'm like, give it 5 years and I'll start cooking up something. I need a break. I am very tired. When it comes to the shows, I'm still watching them, actually. I'm only now watching a lot of them. I started last year. So this is our first. I'll say this: Acolyte was not good, but my biggest issue was it was boring. It was mainly just boring, except for the lightsaber fights. But that's it. It shouldn't have been a show. But outside of that, I am excited to rank the series thus far. So you get a little minor spoiler inside of my current takes on the sequel trilogy and the spinoffs, plus the other films. I get a little recap of what I want to talk about. So that's really about it.
Alrighty. To shake things up from last time, I had you go first last time, so I'm going to go first this time.
Well, first, a word from our sponsor.
Oh, yes, of course. Well, I'm going to save the Burke Fuel for a little bit later. So I have Snapple Mango Madness.
Nice. I have Pepsi, which was actually a Star Wars sponsor at some point during the special editions and prequels. Apparently, Pepsi paid, I think, about $2 to $4 billion to sponsor the prequels. So all their products from KFC, Taco Bell, and Pizza Hut were all shared in the profits of all 3 films. Although by the time Episode 3 came out, they switched to Burger King for some reason. And also, we did get dark chocolate M&Ms, which was pretty cool.
Oh, that's good. That's very good.
I gotta drink through Darth Vader's metachlorian fried brain. Hey, it's like Thumb Wars. It comes out of his head.
Perhaps you think you're being treated unfairly.
This is like, perhaps you think you're being treated. Oh.
Okay, so as mentioned, my list has kind of flip-flopped around quite a bit since our previous video. But the bottom of the barrel has not. My number 13 this time is still Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi.
Ooh.
The legacy and infamy of Episode 8, I think, is now more prevalent than ever, as I believe Episode 8 represents the first part of the two biggest blunders of Disney's tenure with Star Wars. I fucking hate this movie. I hate this movie with every ounce of my heart, soul, and being. This will be the one of only one or two times that I will sound like almost a typey McTurd. Not even trying to be funny. This is, without a shadow of a doubt now, the worst movie I have ever seen in theaters. And it is the worst movie I have ever seen that costs this much money to come out of a studio as big as Disney. This movie is a complete travesty. And if I ever have to subject myself to watching this piece of shit ever again, I will staple my dick to the ceiling of the Empire State Building. I'm not even trying to be funny. I am dead fucking serious. Dead fucking serious.
As a bunch of porgs fly around and peck at it like to get a worm.
Now, I will give the film a little bit of praise. It does have a big budget. This movie cost $300 million to make. And it shows. The movie has a very extensive use of the color red, which is very pretty to look at. Snoke's throne room is red. The Praetorian Guards are red. The surface of Crate under the salt dust is red. There's a lot of use of the color red. And it is strikingly very colorful. There's lots of reds. There's lots of blues. There's lots of whites. It is a pretty film to look at. It is also shot very well. There's a lot of really good cinematography. There's a lot of good camera work. The special effects are also really good, with the exception of one. There are some okay action scenes, like the opening space battle with the Imperial Dreadnought. And there are some funny jokes. I have a message for General Hux. This is General Hux. Prepared to die. Yeah, I'm still waiting for General Hux. Tall, pasty, British. Well, if you can see him, tell him that I have a message for him from his mother. Where are you from? Nowhere. Nobody's from nowhere. Jakku. Okay, that's pretty much nowhere. Like, there are some funny jokes. The Praetorian Guard battle with Rey and Kylo versus all of Snoke's guards is entertaining enough, I suppose, even though it's piss poorly choreographed and very sloppily put together. And the one scene where Luke Skywalker is talking about the flaws of the old Jedi way is somewhat interesting, because a lot of what he's talking about actually is kind of true. But outside of these very minor, minimal praises, I fucking hate this movie. Finn is a complete coward. So much of this movie, Finn is trying to run away and save his own ass. If I'm not mistaken, part of Finn's character arc in episode 7 was him learning to get over his cowardice and stand up and be a hero. And what is he doing the entirety of this movie? Regressing his character development and just trying to run away. Princess Leia is completely wasted. I don't know if that had to do with Carrie Fisher had any health issues at the time, but she's written out of this movie for at least an hour and a half. This movie being the longest Star Wars movie of the entire franchise, 2 hours and 32 minutes. And I would argue that Leia has maybe 20, 30 minutes of screen time for the entire movie. Oh, and another brief, quick scene of praise. I did like the scene where she saved herself using the Force, even if it does rip off a scene out of the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. It's still cool, and is the one time she ever used the Force in the entire series actively. Captain Phasma is wasted, and her fight with Finn is incredibly disappointing, and her death is very abrupt and anticlimactic. The ending itself is anticlimactic, and it also ends on a very sour, bitter, piss poor, unsatisfying note. Rose Tico, while not being as annoying as a lot of other people made her out to be when this movie came out, is still annoying and forced and a pain in the ass to listen to.
The new Jar Jar.
I wouldn't quite go that far,
People
but
were calling her the new Jar Jar.
I don't remember that. The movie also lacks a lot of action. There's the opening chase, and then there's the fucking filler scene at the casino with them breaking out all those animals. It's boring and unnecessary.
With the Jamaican Cantina band theme.
Oh, there's the Battle of Crate, which is okay, even though it ends in a very disappointing manner. And Rose, BB-8, and Finn escaping the Imperial Dreadnought. That's an okay scene. But other than that, the movie doesn't have a whole lot of action. And the whole movie, this being another issue, the film is very derivative of both Attack of the Clones and Empire Strikes Back. The whole movie is just one overly extended ship chase. Vice Admiral Holdo is forced, stupid, and annoying, but the twist that she was actually acting incompetent to actually prove that she's incompetent, I thought was very poorly handled. Why not just have Princess Leia?
Why not have Admiral Akbar commit the Holdo maneuver?
Or that too.
As a form of heroism, you know? Comes out like, trap this, motherfuckers!
But these next issues I have, the deconstruction of the Star Wars formula and the Star Wars franchise is insufferable to sit through and listen to. The fact that, so I've said before, this is an anti-film. This is the anti-Star Wars movie. And I don't like that. I like the typical Star Wars formula. I don't have a problem necessarily if you want to do some things differently here and there. But to do a complete 180, regardless of whether or not this is the 8th film in the franchise, you still should stick to some classic tropes no matter what. This is why you don't take away Godzilla's atomic breath and his immunity to conventional weaponry. If you change something too much, you're going to alienate your fan base and you're going to alienate your audience. Just like with what this movie did when it came out. Luke Skywalker and Mark Hamill are completely wasted and are a complete disgrace. You take Luke fucking Skywalker, the most powerful Jedi in galactic history. He could shoot force fire at his hands. He could use force lightning. He was so fast with his lightsaber, he looked like he was wielding up to 30 to 1,000 lightsabers at the same time. He took on entire armies of clones, stormtroopers, Dark Jedi, and the Yuuzhan Vong all by himself with just his lightsaber. He defeated Abeloth, the literal death god of the Star Wars universe, along with Darth Krayt, and defeated her. Defeated a resurrected Palpatine almost all by himself. The most powerful Jedi and one of the most badass characters in classic Legends continuity. And this is the best that you can do? He's not even a Grandmaster in Disney canon. He's only a Jedi Master. And he says, so what? Do you expect me to just pick up a laser sword and face down an entire army all by myself? Yes, motherfucker, that is what I want you to do. And I don't appreciate being shamed for wanting that. Supreme Leader Snoke is a complete fucking waste and a complete joke. And again, not to sound like one of those entitled typey McTurd types, but as we talked about last time, there was a lot of people that had a lot of interesting and engaging theories surrounding Snoke as a character. Where did Snoke come from? Who is Snoke? What are his plans with Kylo? What are his plans with Ren? Now, sure, Andy Serkis does do a good job playing him, even if he's totally using his Caesar voice from the new Apes trilogy. It still works. And the effects on him are done really well. And while his death scene is cool because of how unexpected it is, but because it's so unexpected, and none of the questions and theories regarding Snoke are even remotely answered, I'm not acknowledging any of the novels set in between the sequel trilogy. I haven't read them. I don't even know what they're called. And that's lazy writing. Snoke is a complete joke.
Snoke
and the
joke.
Biggest... What?
Snoke the joke. The
Yeah.
Snoker. The Snoker. The Todd Phillips Snoker. Kylo Ren's like, you get what you deserve.
And the biggest cardinal sin of all that any film can make. 2 hours and 32 minutes long. And oh my God, is this movie boring. It drags. It plods. It ekes itself along at a glacial snail's pace with some very brief moments of respite here and there. But it's like Rian Johnson actively chose to make the most different Star Wars film you could possibly imagine. And not to sound like a typey McTurd, but I don't care. I like the typical Star Wars formula. I like lightsaber duels. I like Jedi versus Sith. I like big bombastic action scenes. This movie just actively does not give me what I want to see. And like I said, this movie represents part one of a two-part piece of Disney's biggest failure with Star Wars. They actively chose to choose a director who's very unconventional. They actively chose to promote this movie as heavily as they could. There was a lot of hype that surrounded this movie, and I was so excited for it. And it wasn't like Phantom Menace levels of hype, but there was a lot of anticipation and excitement leading up to this movie. But when this movie came out, lots of mainstream critics absolutely loved it, but fans left and right despise this movie left and right, myself being one of them. I will never understand the severe difference in opinions between mainstream critics and fans. And yes, I do stand by the opinion. This is the worst movie that I have ever seen from a big budget mainstream studio released in theaters that I have ever seen. Fuck this movie. Fuck Rian Johnson. And I hope his canceled Star Wars trilogy burns in hell for all eternity.
Damn. I hope the other ones aren't that long. Oh, God. All right, I'm going to make mine short because holy shit. Well, okay, okay. So I'll just say this before I rank them. I should point out that I don't hate really any of these movies. I'm not as mad and obsessively feeling like half of Star Wars has been blasphemy, heresy, like literally being like Michael Shannon and Man of Steel. Heresy! Destroy them! I'm not that level of fanboy. Typey McTurd is basically fanboy stereotype face because that's what they are, and I can't fucking stand it anymore.
It's only funny because it's true.
So just bear in mind as I rate this, I know we're doing worst to best, but to me, this is more, in terms of worst to best, it's more about from like the least watchable that I've seen to the most watchable I've seen. That's the best way I can do best to worst in this with Star Wars, which is why I'm going to say my first choice, the 3D Clone Wars movie. Couple reasons why. One, the animation has not held up that well. And I know it's essential. Two, it's the pilot, and normally the pilot doesn't have good episodes. Look at the first episode of The Simpsons. Good lord, it's like really squiggly lines and shit. But with 3D Clone Wars, is that this is much like I say about things like it compares. It's like the complete opposite I have to like The Acolyte or Obi-Wan. That should not have been a TV show. It should have been a movie. This shouldn't have been a movie. A TV movie, maybe, but a theatrical release, I question it. I did see this in theaters on a whim because I wanted to see more Star Wars on the big screen. And while on the big screen, I was thoroughly entertained because I like Star Wars. I was feeling like this feels like the pilot. This feels like this could have been 3 episodes as the start of the show. And I guess they had enough competence to put it in theaters. And my biggest issue with it is much like I do with the first season of the show. While there are great episodes, it's just, I understand to get people started on it, but there are some stuff in here I'm like, this doesn't feel like much dread. This doesn't feel like much tensity. With the only exceptions, the lightsaber fights in the movie are fun, including the deleted one that was cut between Ventress, Ahsoka, and Anakin. The fight between Ventress and Obi-Wan is really cool. I like the fact that her blades can be a double blade lightsaber. That was never established before. I like the fact that they brought back Samuel L. Jackson and Christopher Lee to be Count Dooku and Mace Windu. And ironically, this was actually Christopher Lee's final performance as Count Dooku. This is his last time to do the role. He did pretty good, despite maybe being in the booth for maybe a day. I felt that was nice for the fans to see, despite the fact that later the voices would be replaced. And in terms of just being a movie, it just did. My only complaint about it is that it didn't need to be in theaters. I actually normally skip the movie and just go straight into the show. It kind of reminds me of it's kind of like Mighty Morphin Power Rangers the movie, where fun movie, entertaining. But in terms of being canon to the overall lore, I mean, like, this is canon. But in terms of being, like, overall important to the plot, not really. Like, what do we know? Okay, Baby Jabba, cool. This happens, cool. But nothing of significance. And as a fan of the Clone Wars, it is probably, next to Season 1, the least amount I've watched. And, it's just, that's my biggest gripe with it. It shouldn't have been in theaters. So I rank it as probably like the least I've watched. I've only saw it once in theaters, a couple times on DVD, but I never have really fully given myself time to watch it again.
Alrighty. Coming in at number 13, also hasn't changed. Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. I like this movie even less than 2024. Now, it's not a bad movie at all. Don't get me wrong. It, too, has a big budget, and Gareth Edwards does a good job directing the film. It has a fantastic final space battle. It's probably the best space battle of the entire Star Wars franchise, no doubt. K2SO is a wonderful addition. Alan Tudyk does a great job playing him, and the effects on him are fantastic. The effects overall for the entire movie are all fantastic, including the CG recreated Peter Cushing and Carrie Fisher. The Cushing one is a little more noticeable because he's in the movie quite a bit, but I still think the animation is well done and the voice acting was well done. There are a couple decent action scenes, namely it's the last final battle. And of course, both Darth Vader scenes are the highlight of the film. And James Earl Jones does do a good job playing him, as always. But outside of this, now, again, this is not a bad movie, but I also think this possibly is the most unrewatchable film of the entire Star Wars franchise. It is the biggest definition of a watch once type movie. Kind of like the film Sixth Sense. Once you see how the film plays out, and you know how it plays out upon upon subsequent rewatches, I just think the story gets less and less engaging because you know how the film ends. Everybody dies. No matter what the rebels accomplish in this movie, they still get their asses kicked. The film teases us with the Darth Vader film that we've been wanting to see for a long time, but we're just not getting it. The film is extremely bleak and depressing. The film is paced very poorly, in my opinion. I actually think the movie also drags like a son of a bitch, especially in the first half. Chirrut Imwe should have been a Jedi, not just a Force-sensitive blind guy with just a stick. Come on. I mean, I don't have an issue with him being Force-sensitive and blind, but it should have been a lightsaber, not a stick. All of these cool new characters die, which that also leads to the film feeling very unrewatchable because all of these new cool characters that you get attached to, they all get killed off. Jyn Erso dies. Andor dies. K2SO dies. Chirrut Imwe dies. All of these really cool characters, they get unceremoniously killed off. And this leads to, in my opinion, the biggest issue that this movie has. And it's kind of another big example of what Disney Star Wars just keeps getting wrong. It's pointless. Did we need to see the previous 24 hours before the events of A New Hope in a feature-length big-budget movie? No. Did we need to see how they got their hands on the plan for the Death Star? No, not in the feature-length movie. Had this maybe been like an hour-long Disney Plus TV special or something, I think it would have been much more preferable. But as a feature-length, theatrically released, big-budget movie, this movie is completely pointless. Sue me.
Yeah, I mean, I had a quote, but I can't remember what it was. But I'll probably get back. No, I remember what it was when I was talking about. It was one of my reviews, and we have an interview with John Knoll. We see him in the documentary, and he's like, "Oh, well, continuity and this," and I'm like, "Continuity, my ass, John Knoll. Go back to making Rogue One," because he's the one who pitched the idea. But my next ranking. And I don't know if this is going to be controversial or not, because like this is probably like in terms of the live action films, the one I've least watched. Solo. I saw this once in theaters. I actually only recently watched it on TV a while ago. And the biggest problem is it was poorly handled. The biggest issue is that you had a set of directors who had potential to make something incredible, but then Hollywood politics came in and said, "No, this isn't working. We're firing you. Let's bring in the guy who made Willow." And while I'll give Ron Howard credit, he is a very competent, safe director. It does make me wonder what the original cut of this movie was going to be like. It is a little conjointed. You can tell when reshoots happen and when reshoots didn't. The film is murky as shit. It's just literally, to quote Midnight Screenings, when they saw Phantom Menace and there was a guy dressed in a cardboard Boba Fett costume, it was brown. It was the color of poo. That's the whole movie. It is brown. It is the color of poo. It is bentha poodoo. In terms of the color, I can't see nothing but clouded diarrhea. It looks like a fucking Rancor farted all over the fucking lenses. A Rancor took a big fucking clouded fart all over the lens, and I can't see a thing in this helmet. I can't see shit.
Why did you say so before?
I did say so before. Why'd you make me take the fucking Pepto-Bismol, Luke? What the hell? So it's murky, and you can tell it's been altered with shooting. That being said, I think the cast is good. I like the guy who plays Han Solo. I love Donald Glover as Lando? He was fantastic. I thought Woody Harrelson was cool. I thought it was cool to see Chewbacca here. I like that they kind of mildly made the holiday special canon. I actually have respect for that. I liked while we see the Falcon. My only issue with the Falcon is that it does break a little continuity, because in episode 3, you see the Falcon in the background landing on Coruscant, but that might just be another Corellian space freighter. It might just be another model. Which, again, if it's that case, okay, fine. I did, and I'll say this, while I'm a little disappointed we didn't really get this, although I'm curious if this new show is going to fix that, the Darth Maul ending left me a little bit like, what the hell is this? What are we planning? Are we planning a Darth Maul movie or not? But with that being said, I think the new Darth Maul show is going to try to finally kind of adapt that, which, okay, let's see what you can do. Do I wish we could get a live action film with Ray Park, despite the fact poor Ray Park's going through some issues right now? I would love that. But are we going to get something? I don't know if we will. I think that is up to the fans to do. Although Darth Maul Apprentice is a great fan film. With that being said, yeah, it's Ocean's 11 in outer space. And because most people want to see Star Wars for its space battles and lightsaber duels, this feels a little boring. And it is kind of essentially a Rancor fart. That is the best way I can describe this movie. It's a Rancor fart. And especially the Kessel Run. I'll give credit to John Powell. I thought he did a good score. But yeah, this is a Rancor poop. This is a big, giant Rancor poop. Why does he roar like that? He's got severe diarrhea from eating too many Gamorrean guards.
May as well cut our losses. Yeah, my number 11 is also Solo, a Star Wars
There we go.
story.
Rancor fart, the movie.
Now, a lot of what Jackie Boy says, I do agree with. Now, this movie is part 2 of Disney's biggest failure with Star Wars. Now, again, there is some decent action. The Kessel Run was kind of cool. Escaping the spice mine, that was kind of cool. The final action scene was entertaining enough, I suppose. There are some good performances, namely Woody Harrelson's character and what's her name? Emilia Clarke. She does do a good job. And the Darth Maul cameo was cool. And there were a couple funny jokes, namely Han Solo speaking broken Shriwook to Chewie when they first meet. That was kind of funny. But God, this movie, I'll get to that in just a second. But I don't like the actor who plays young Han Solo. I think he is painfully miscast. He does not even remotely look like Harrison Ford, and he just doesn't fit. He doesn't feel like Han Solo. Actually, I think this movie would have been better off if it was like a Poe Dameron origin story movie, maybe, because he acts and feels more like Poe Dameron, in my opinion.
Save that note.
The stupid feminazi droid is incredibly fucking annoying. Oh my good God. The film also does have a lack of action. I get that it is a heist movie in space. Maybe something like that would have worked better for Star Trek or Battlestar Galactica. But for Star Wars, I just don't think the heist genre really meshes well with space opera. Nah, not for me. The false promise of a Darth Maul movie is also very painful. Even though, like, yes, apparently this upcoming Darth Maul show, if that is actually happening, may try to right this wrong. I don't have a lot of faith in it, though, to be perfectly frank. But I actually think they should not have gotten Ray Park back as Darth Maul. Call me crazy, but I think he was too old. They should have gotten Sam Witwer. He voices him anyway. Sam Witwer still does look a fair bit like Darth Maul. And he voiced him in TCW, so yeah, why not just hire Sam Witwer? This movie also does kind of have, it has two aspects that make it feel kind of similar to Alien Resurrection. Like that film, the movie lacks really any connective tissue to the rest of the franchise. Sure, we meet Chewbacca for the first time in this movie, but outside that, this movie feels very isolated from the rest of the franchise. Kind of like Alien Resurrection for the rest of the Alien series. And the other big problem is that, yes, this movie is a big old pile of poopy. It's very brown. It's like Terminator Salvation and Godzilla 2014. It's very murky. It's very brown. It's very bland. And it's very colorless and unenjoyable to look at.
It's brown.
But the biggest thing, now, again, it's not necessarily a bad movie. But the biggest issue is that it is overwhelmingly unnecessary. This is one of the biggest financial blunders in the history of cinema. And funny, not even 10 years apart, Disney had this movie be a huge flop, and in 2023, it would have Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny become a huge flop. And both of those films are considered some of the most expensive movies ever made. And in my opinion, like I said, this is part 2 of Disney's biggest failure with Star Wars. And in many ways, I think Solo is a worse failure for Disney. Disney tried as hard as they could to push this movie onto fans. Now, granted, maybe some of the issues that the film has generated from the film's troubled production, in which case that is a shame, but that still is a fault on the studio. They tried so hard, this was literally the reaction. Hey guys, instead of this Obi-Wan Kenobi movie that you want to see, or this Darth Maul movie that you want to see, we're going to give you a Han Solo origin story movie. Does that sound fun? Does that sound great?
But why?
And the fan base was just like,
why? Why?
No, we don't want. I have also seen some people theorize that this movie was boycotted by a bunch of pissed off Star Wars fans after the release of The Last Jedi. I mean, I could see that being a factor, and it probably was in many ways. But I firmly believe the biggest reason why Solo failed, as hard as they tried, as hard as Disney was trying to shove this movie down our throats and shove it up our asses and screaming at us in our faces and trying to guilt trip us into watching this movie that we did not want. We did not want to see this.
I don't consent.
The film failed because nobody was interested and nobody cared. You can write a 10,000-page essay explaining it for this reason or that reason, but as far as I'm concerned, the film failed because nobody cared. Nobody wanted this movie. And it will live on in infamy as one of the biggest blunders in cinematic history and one of the biggest examples of a fan base and franchise just rejecting the very existence of an installment. And in many ways, rightfully so.
Yeah, I mean, but if that, I mean, Solo, I will say, like, is probably the least interesting. I would say this is where we get really interesting, because for me, I have flip-flop on these two particular films, so much of which one is fundamentally worse. And while at one point I agreed this one was worse and then this one stuck the landing, I'm not gonna lie, what are we, 6-7 years since? My opinion has changed. I'm going to say that Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker is fundamentally the worst of the sequel trilogy. And I have my reasons. And a lot of it has been enlightening in the last few years since the trilogy ended. Because I was actually, well, everybody was over Star Wars since Last Jedi. The Last Jedi divided the fans. The Last Jedi told everybody we're done, and all that. Rise of Skywalker was, with the, pun intended, our only hope to really stick the landing and get something there. Now, while when I first saw it, there was, I'm not going to lie, I loved the first trailer. That trailer was incredible. As it started to get closer and closer to release, I started to have some doubt. I felt something's wrong. In fact, I remember talking to friends saying there were rumors that they were still doing reshoots a month before release, and that Adam Driver was doing lines in his closet on his phone to send to Lucasfilm because they made more changes. There were rumors this was going to get delayed to 2020. Can you imagine that? With what we know now, that would have sucked. And we also found out the book, it was more expensive than Last Jedi. I think this was over $400 million. This cost us, because they were chronically reshooting it. I actually would be curious about the original cut of the film, which was supposed to be 4.5 hours, including apparently scenes with Hayden Christensen as Ghost Anakin, and Matt Smith was apparently cast as a young Palpatine in flashbacks training with Darth Plagueis. They were going to give us a little bit of sympathy for Palpatine. There were things planned. And even John Williams, he got screwed over. But to my point, when it came out, I had my doubts. And when I first saw it, I said to all my friends, I was with a bunch of friends, IMAX opening night, and we said, listen, guys, if this isn't good, whether it's good or bad, let's raise a toast. It's the last Star Wars movie. Let's just try to have some fun with it. And we all raised the glass. We all said, you know what? To Star Wars, this is the last one last ride. One last ride. God, what we know now. But the thing is, we saw it, and it was like, you know what? Stuck the landing. I remember Brad was crying at one scene. I was like, oh, damn, dude, really? You're crying? Okay. We came out pretty okay. Then time passed. And I'm going to tell you something right now. I have not fully sat through this film since it came out in theaters. I've been afraid to. And even though I have the Blu-ray, I can get it on Disney Plus. I have been fundamentally scared to go back and watch this, because having seen a ton of reviews, I'll say the one person who finally was sort of the Mr. Plinkett of the sequel trilogy is Mueller. And I love Mueller's videos. They are very informative. I will never get over The Last Jedi, Luke drinking milk, and his meme is, all right, what the fuck? Every time they fuck up, he's like, well, what the fuck? What finally made me realize, only maybe about a week ago, this is the worst of the Skywalker saga. I saw Linkara's review of the comic book adaptation. That alone is a 2.5 hour review, by the way. And
I'm good.
Looking at what was entailed of why this failed is fascinating. Number one, from the very beginning, since Force Awakens, Disney, in terms of a plan, had fuck all. They had no plan. That is the biggest problem. They had no plan. They were pulling it literally. Remember how I said in my review of episode 3 how Palpatine pulled the name Vader right out of his ass? That's the sequel trilogy. The plot pulled it out of their ass. And it just looked back and I say this does more damage to the franchise than Last Jedi did because it's trying to fix, it's trying to overcorrect Last Jedi. Like there's fixing it and then there's over fixing it where, okay, now it just looks, this is way too much. There are things I just fundamentally, I look back and say, what a wasted potential for a finale. What a waste of, you cut out, my biggest issue, and I bring this up, Mueller said it best. Everybody complains, Palpatine's still alive. Why? Here's my biggest issue. And I'm going to quote Mueller here. What the fuck did you do to Anakin Skywalker's legacy, you abysmal shitballs? What the fuck have you done? If Palpatine is alive, why did you not even think to bring back Anakin? I think the moment he should have shown up is when that Han Solo scene with Ben, replace that with Anakin, that would have actually fixed some shit. The return of the Chosen One. Not to lead the charge, but to guide the new heroes, if Luke can't. There was just so much wrong with this. And it ripping off other properties, it's ripping off Dark Empire, it's ripping off so many projects. It's a disaster. And I don't even know if the 4-hour cut would have saved it. I actually much prefer Colin Trevorrow's original script, Star Wars Episode 9, Duel of the Fates, which had a much more unique and interesting idea and story and dealt with the lore. This just does not do it. And I am fundamentally scared to rewatch it because I feel like I'm going to hate it. I will admit, there were things I liked. I thought, Palpatine, listen, it's Ian McDiarmid. He's having fun. Let him do his shtick. He'll be entertaining. And he was. I think there are some really great visuals. I think it is a it has some great action set pieces. I thought the fight with Rey and Kylo on the Death Star remains was fantastic. My only complaint, John Williams did say he was going to take themes from all the movies and put them in, and that scene originally was cut with a redo of Duel of the Fates and Battle of the Heroes, and I think that would have been great because it would have tied it from 1 to 9. We could have come back full circle, but they cut it out, and that's why that's why you don't hear many themes in the new shows, because I think John Williams said, you treated my music like shit, I'm out. You can't use them. So the fight was fine. There were some interesting things with characters I was very curious about, but there was just stuff in here. You could tell a lot was cut for lore, and it's just an overcorrection of The Last Jedi. And this was made on fear. This was made on absolute fear and to try to please everybody. And what's the saying? When you try to please them all, you don't please anybody. It just hasn't aged well. It has not aged well for me. It's got some moments of grandeur, but a lot of weight. As a finale, it's the same issue I have with Jurassic World Dominion. As a finale, it is a complete waste of potential. And that can sum up the entire sequel trilogy. Dabbing out.
Well, you'll be surprised where that ranks up on my list.
Okay.
My my number 10, Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace.
Wow.
Pretty much the same problems and kind of the same thing. It's almost in the same place that it was in the original video. Now, from here on out, this is classic Star Wars. This is where the list is. Like, I can watch all these movies perfectly fine and enjoy them. This is classic OG Star Wars. But episode 1 is still the least of all the Star Wars that I like. Definitively now. If I was to marathon, well, I mean, so like I said, I choose to marathon Star Wars now. I start with the prequels and I end with Rise of Skywalker, as I did with this recent rewatch. So as a result, this being the beginning of the franchise, now there are a lot of good things to like. Liam Neeson does a great job as Qui-Gon Jinn. I do think Qui-Gon is a bit of an overrated character amongst the Star Wars fan base, but still, Liam Neeson's great. I love his lightsaber. I love his fatherly mentor role that he takes for both young Obi-Wan and Jake Lloyd. Young Obi-Wan, of course, is a pleasure to see. Ewan McGregor does a great job playing him. Although, even you can't deny this probably is his weakest performance of any Star Wars project he's been a part of, but that's only by default. It was his first time. There are some fun action scenes. Darth Maul is awesome. The pod race is cool. The Duel of the Fates, of course, is one of the best lightsaber duels of the entire franchise. And, you know, I'm a huge fan of saber staffs. So I'm in. And how Darth Maul gets defeated is quite shocking and brutal and graphic for Star Wars.
I remember when that came out in theaters, people were cheering.
The music score is great. It feels like a great return to form for John Williams. This overall just feels like a pleasant, welcome return to OG Star Wars. Now, I do think, and Jar Jar Binks, I don't give a fuck what anybody says. I think he's hilarious. Just to follow me now, today.
Yeah, that's really good.
But now, I don't think saying this movie didn't live up to the obscene amount of hype that surrounded it is not very fair. I don't think that's a very fair criticism. But I can see why some people may have been disappointed. I do think the film kind of lacks action. I think it's 15 minutes too long, and the film is paced in a very imbalanced way. I think the first half moves along at a pretty good clip, but when they leave Tatooine and all of the scenes that take place at Coruscant, talking to the Republic, talking to the Chancellor, talking to the Senate, it drags like a motherfucker. All the scenes at the Jedi Temple, testing and training young Anakin, all drag like a motherfucker. And when the film goes back to Naboo and we have the siege on Naboo, it is entertaining, but I also do think, and of course, the Duel of the Fates is awesome, but that whole third act, in my opinion, does feel a bit rushed, in my opinion. And it easily has the weakest space battles of the entire Star Wars franchise. They're very lazy, very sloppy, and very uninteresting. But to me, the biggest problem with The Phantom Menace is if you start with this movie as the beginning of the franchise, if you marathon starting with Phantom Menace, in my opinion, it has the strongest case of what I call first chapter syndrome. It feels like part one of a several part series. And it has all the same flaws. The lack of action. There's a lot of exposition. There's a lot of expansion. There's a lot of filler and just talk. You know what this is? This is the Fellowship of the Ring of the Star Wars franchise. But the only difference is that there's a crap ton of action still in the Fellowship of the Ring. So that's the film's saving grace. But so Phantom Menace is a good movie, and I think a lot of its hate that it received upon release and for a long time was very unfounded. But just for me, there's other Star Wars films that I like way more than Phantom Menace.
That it? Yeah. Okay. My next ranking is, again, much like my last one, but oddly enough, over time, I've come to appreciate it a little more, and I know you're gonna probably plug your ears on this. The Last Jedi. Now, I'm gonna say it. It's better than Rise of Skywalker over time, but not by much. I do agree with Nick here, is that the movie is a little boring. It's too long. It has issues. It does change the formula too much. I do think that the lack of a lightsaber duel, i.e. saber on saber action, is missing. In fact, my opinion, you could have had 2 duels in this movie and actually make it work. And I'm not talking about Luke fighting Ben on Crate. That fight I actually would have been okay with if you had 2 fights prior. What should have happened is that Rey should have pulled out the Skywalker lightsaber and fought Luke with the green lightsaber. These 2 sabers, the one Nick has and the one I have, the 2 Skywalker blades should have clashed at some point. That would have been the last we see of this. But then at the fight with the guards, my opinion, they should have been the Knights of Ren, and they should have had red lightsabers. Now, I'm talking about keep the traditional sabers. You could add a couple with the single, 1, 2, maybe 2 with a double, and then maybe 2 with a cross guard. Maybe have somebody with a double-bladed cross guard lightsaber. That would have been interesting. That would have been over the top. That would have been cool. You could have done something there, and they chose not to. That being said, the things I liked about this movie over time have kind of made it a little better. I do think it is probably the best shot Star Wars movie. I think it is, you could tell the budget went into visual substance. It is style. It looks nice. It's well shot. I do think that the puppets look great. The locations look great. But also, it does things outside of what they did to the original trilogy cast. Luke, Leia. The new characters have moments of grandeur that actually expand things like the Force. I think the idea with this movie was to not just be flashy lightsabers. It was more going back to what the original trilogy was saying, where it was about the Force and the idea that with Yoda, where it's like, you don't need a lightsaber to fight your opponent. My ally is the Force. I think that Linkara brought this up, that The Last Jedi has good morals with a terrible story. Whereas The Rise of Skywalker has a terrible story, or an okay story, but terrible morals. Like, they are flipped on their head. The Last Jedi gets a credit for some of the morals. I love the scene with Yoda and Luke. The fact it's a puppet. The fact it's Frank Oz. The fact that this is the next step for Luke and Yoda to learn, is that I actually do like the saying, the greatest teacher failure is, because how are you supposed to learn without fucking up a few times? How are you supposed to learn something when you don't fuck up? The moral of learning is you have to fuck up first. What's the saying? Fuck around and find out. Fuck around is your fuck up. Finding out is your lesson. I think the movie was trying to tell us. And I also like Yoda saying to Luke, we are what we grow beyond. That is the true burden of all masters. I like that. They know they don't have much time left, and they're like, you know what? We just have to be what we were. We have to go beyond what we were. There is something there. There are great morals in this movie, but it is tied down to a terrible script, a terrible story, a film that was more about breaking the rules and doing something like I said, Rise of Skywalker overcorrected Last Jedi. The Last Jedi overcorrects the traditional Star Wars merits, and it was mainly because Disney wanted to outsmart its audience. Because I found out, apparently Lucasfilm had spies in Reddit forums. And on Reddit forums, they were monitoring what the theories were, as Nick said. And what they came up with was, okay, if there's a theory, we ain't doing it. Why? Because we want to make this unpredictable. We think that shock value and not seeing what's coming is more important than telling a story. That will make us billions. That was a fuck up. Haldo is a complete Kathleen Kennedy fan fiction stand-in. Absolute fan fiction. And I'm going to sound a little off for saying this.
She's a diversity hire.
Here's what I'm going to say right now, and this might cause a bit of a controversy. I'm sorry, Disney, but Star Wars, your main demographic is much like the Transformers movies. Little boys and teenage boys. Stop trying to put Star Wars in the fucking pink aisle. Stop trying to make it Barbie. Listen, we're cool with women in Star Wars. We're cool. We welcome it. We love it. But when you try to shove this up our ass, down our throats, to swallow it whole, it's not fun. It's depressing. It goes completely against what we did. And on top of that, yeah, this was at the time, unfortunately, and I say this with very sad regards, especially with what we know today, unfortunately, this was at the time Hollywood stepped up and became pure anti-Trump propaganda. Every billion-dollar franchise was turned into a big fuck Donald Trump propaganda poster. Now, I'm apolitical. I don't give a fuck. But when I go to the movies, I want to escape reality. I want to enjoy a story with fun characters, build my imagination, and have some goddamn fun. To get away from the real world, which is right now fucking scary. It is horrifying out there. So to have a little escapism would be nice. So when that horror comes creeping into my screen like the fucking Ring and trying to plaster a big message, get the fuck out of here. I understand Star Wars is political. I understand that the original trilogy was a message about Vietnam. I understand that the prequels were about the rise of fascism in World War II mixed with a little bit of the Bush administration. And I understand that if the sequel trilogy wanted to be a bit about the rise of current fascism with the Trump administration, I understand that. But you flubbed it because you did not have a plan. George Lucas, I actually consider him a filmmaking philosopher. Like Qui-Gon said about Anakin, he can see things before they happen. George saw a lot what would come. And Disney did not. Disney just pulled whatever was popular and trendy. It was the equivalent of giving them focus groups and having the Sonic movie, Sonic doing that stupid goddamn floss dance. They said, put this in the movie because this is a thing to talk about. And you should have gotten a philosopher to predict the future and if you want to make a message like that, then make it consistent with all three movies. The Last Jedi is when I realized, oh, you don't have a plan, do you? And that's the thing. I do enjoy this movie. I think it has some interesting things to say, but it fails because you have a piss-ass story that shits all over the people who are paying money to see this. But it is better than Rise of Skywalker.
I'm going to whip you.
Rise of Skywalker did a lot more damage, I think.
It's still entertaining. Moving on.
I was going to say, Last Jedi was me getting my ass kicked. Rise of Skywalker was taking a big shit on me after beating my ass. It was, Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker. Icky, go!
Okay, now here's a big change from my original Oh, wait a minute. Before I move on,
Uh-oh.
I just want to say, if they had just changed a couple things for The Last Jedi, it would have been more enjoyable. Like, yes, if the Praetorian Guards were the Knights of Ren, that would have been much more preferable. And they all should have had lightsabers. That would have been a much more entertaining scene. And so here's the big change. They should have killed off Leia and have Luke survive and pull his head out of his ass and be Rey's new master. And they should have had him appear in the flesh at the end, have a proper lightsaber duel with Kylo Ren, defeat him, not kill him, but defeat him as like a master of dominance, saying, I'm Luke Skywalker, bitch. You ain't gonna do shit to me. Like, if they had just made those couple of changes and kept the rest of the film in its current state, like, I still would have said it's the weakest of the sequel trilogy, but I wouldn't have hated it nearly as much. So with that being said,
I want to say Honey Bear is in the chat. She says she calls the sequel trilogy, she said me in a DM, the Sky Farter trilogy, because it farts all over its legacy.
Yeah, here's a big change from my original list. My number 9 is Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones.
Wow.
Why did I have this at number 5 in my original list?
Don't know.
Well, yeah, this movie has, lost a fair bit of value for me. Because it commits another cardinal sin similar to The Last Jedi, although not nearly as bad as The Last Jedi. It's kind of boring. There is some decent action scenes. I do think Hayden Christensen does a good job, for the most part, as young Anakin Skywalker. Count Dooku, being played by Christopher Lee, is a great inclusion, and he does an amazing job. And his scene talking to Obi-Wan Kenobi is a great scene, is a great expansion on the lore. I do think the clone investigation side of the story is interesting and engaging. And Obi-Wan Kenobi's fight with Jango Fett is cool. And I love that sound effect when they're in space, when Jango starts dropping the seismic charges. Boom. Bang!
It sounds like a guitar. Damn!
And the last 40 minutes of this movie, the Geonosian arena, when Padme and Anakin get to Geonosia and they're going through the droid factories, I like that scene, even if it is a bit sloppy in the effects department. But when they pull out those 3 monsters, and then Mace Windu with his purple lightsaber shows up, and then the clones start attacking, and then we have the lightsaber duels between Count Dooku and Yoda, and then Count Dooku, Anakin, and Obi-Wan. Yeah, the last 40 minutes of this movie is peak badass Star Wars, and it's entertaining as all living shit. So there is a fair bit of stuff to like about this movie, but I do think it is the weakest of the prequel trilogy. The film does have Sinister 2 syndrome. I think it's paced very poorly. It has the weakest special effects of the entire franchise. So much of the green screen and so much of the compositing effects are all terrible. The CGI Yoda is very stiff and very prototypey. There's terrible dialogue, terrible romantic chemistry between Hayden and Natalie. They just don't have chemistry. With the exception of one scene, I talked about this before, when Anakin gets run over by like that roly-poly cow animal on Naboo, and she thinks he's hurt, and she rolls him over, and he's just laughing his ass off. And yeah, that scene's kind of funny, and that scene's kind of cute. But their dialogue is terrible, and yeah, it's been memed, but it's still terrible. I don't like sand. It's coarse. It's rough. It's irritating. And it gets everywhere. It's funny, but it's still bad. You love me? I thought we decided not to love each other. I've been feeling my heart being torn apart ever since I saw
Oh,
you.
oh.
Oh, God in heaven. It's just fucking, it's terrible. George Lucas, you can write amazing science fiction fantasy stories, but you cannot do romantic tension, dude. I'm sorry. You needed somebody else. Um, and I also think this movie has the weakest lightsaber duels of the entire franchise. The fight between Obi-Wan versus Count Dooku, it's very lackluster and slow. Anakin versus Count Dooku. I mean, it's kind of cool for the first time seeing somebody dual wield lightsabers. But it's over and done with in the snap of a finger, and then he goes back to just using his blue lightsaber. But it's very showy. It's very
Gravy.
Style over substance, and it's just very uninteresting and unengaging. And while the fight between Yoda and Count Dooku is entertaining at first with their what's the word? What's the word? Sharing of force. Their sharing of force abilities. That's cool. And of course, we got a great line from Count Dooku. It is obvious that this contest cannot be decided by our knowledge of the Force, but by our skills with the lightsaber. Sadly, though, the actual lightsaber duel between Yoda and Dooku is terrible because the effects are terrible. It's painfully obvious it's a crow-jobbed stunt double for Christopher Lee, and the effects have not aged well at all. Of the entire Star Wars franchise, even worse than the original trilogy, this is the one where the effects have aged the worst, in my opinion.
Okay.
So that's really all I have to say. Attack of the Clones, I mean, it is a fun movie, and I have a lot of nostalgia for it, and I have a lot of fond memories regarding it, but yeah, it's got a lot of problems. It does have stuff to like, but yeah.
I'm
How did I have this at number 5?
I'll say this. I had to switch my list. I'm gonna actually agree. I'm in the same rank. Episode 2. My issue is, and I mean, I've already said what I've had to say in my review recently. This is more like, this is something I'd rather watch. I find more appreciation for it watching it on TV. When it's on television on basic cable, if they're doing a marathon, I'll watch that on TV. And I will admit, I'm more engaged in the politics of the prequels a lot more. I think they are they're very much like they are a set of world building. They do build the world. They have it where here's how it works. And I appreciated that. I do agree that, there is some stuff in here. It does feel like it's badly paced. The last 45 minutes, I said it in my review, where the fuck was this movie the whole time? But on top of that, I will give the movie credit. Being the first digitally done movie with the CGI, and on top of that, George just pushing the digital technology. The camera was the first time a digital camera was used to make a movie. It wasn't using film. Was important, and it was groundbreaking, because without that push, we would not have the technology of editing and digital filmmaking we have today. We would be very far behind if they didn't push it. And I think I'm going to quote Ghostbusters as a test, successful test. But in terms of, yeah, it is badly paced. I have been curious of what the IMAX cut is like, because apparently this was released in IMAX. And they had to cut a few scenes because the IMAX projectors didn't like fit all the whole movie. So that's been curious. But yeah, the love story is a little lame. It is so poorly written. And I'm just going to requote what I said in my review. Fuck, not to toot my own horn, but I write better romance than this. I will not talk about the fireplace scene. I had went on and on about it. It looks like something out of the fucking Room. You're lying. I never hit you. You're tearing me apart, Padme. Why are you so hysterical, Anakin? I did not choke her. I did not. Oh, hi, Jar Jar. No, it's There is one thing I will bring up as an extension of my review that I actually I didn't mention because by the time I released it, this was out. The Yoda fight scene is fucking hilarious for how bad it is, but it is also, you know what, over the top, and it's hilarious. It's over the top and entertaining for being so over the top. He's a Tasmanian devil. It's Crouching Tiger, Hidden Muppet. But to add to that, actually that, I want to bring this up. In the Light and Magic documentary on Disney Plus, where they have a lot of them open up about the prequel and the making it. There's a story that apparently George wanted the fight. Rob Coleman, the animation director, was set to do it. And when George told him, all right, good luck making the fight, Rob Coleman, after George left, was just like, oh, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to make this work. Ahmed Best, who's friends with him, comes in and says, how's the Jar Jar thing, or how's the Yoda fight going? He's like, Ahmed, I don't know how to do this. How do we make this believable? Ahmed sat down for a second. He said, you know what? Come to my place, San Francisco, tomorrow. I'll make lunch. I want to show you something. Rob Coleman comes to his San Francisco place. Ahmed brings out sandwiches, and Ahmed says, okay, so Rob, what do you know about Toonami? And Rob's like, I think my kids watch it on Cartoon Network in the afternoons. Do you know anything about anime? And Rob's like, yeah, I know what it is. Like, Akira. George talks about Akira. Then Ahmed's like, all right, wait till you see this shit. Slaps on Dragon Ball Z, Akira, Fist of the North Star, Gundam, Ghost in the Shell, and a shit ton of John Woo movies. Pauses and says to Rob, you see that? That is Yoda fighting. That's what you want. So the fact that the fighting style was inspired by anime and John Woo movies, and also I love that part where he pulls out the lightsaber. It's right out of Clint Eastwood in the Dollars trilogy. It's even green. It matches. I think that's actually a really cool fact. We can now confirm Ahmed Best is a fucking weeb. He is a total anime fan. So this is officially Jar Jar's Bizarre Adventures. Jar Jar's Bantha Poodoo Adventures in Icky Icky Goo. But yeah, Attack of the Clones, the last 45 minutes kicks ass. But yeah, it's long. It's too long, and there is stuff I like, but not enough to. It is the weakest of the prequels. Moving on.
It's also the second or third longest of the franchise too. Rise of Skywalker is, I think, 2 hours and 22. I think this is 2 hours and 24.
Oh my god.
My number 8 is Star Wars: The Clone Wars, the movie. Now, yeah, I do agree with a lot of what Jackie Boy was talking about. But I still have a crap ton of nostalgia for this movie. I think The Clone Wars might be the most underrated film of the entire series. Now, here's the thing. I'm also biased towards it because The Clone Wars is my all-time favorite TV show. And yes, this movie does function as essentially the pilot for the show. I do think that it was unnecessarily released into theaters. I will not disagree with that whatsoever. But I mean, it still was a success. Again, it cost only $8 million and it made $64 million in its entire box office run. So great return investment. But I do think it would have been much more fitting if it was a TV film or like a big TV special on Cartoon Network. It probably was. I like the addition of Ahsoka Tano. She's become one of my favorite characters in all of Star Wars. Even if she does represent like Disney's one of, not really a flaw, but she is a big question mark. And everybody has asked this question, like during the events of the original trilogy, what the fuck's Ahsoka doing? During the events of a good chunk of Rebels, what the fuck is Ahsoka doing? During the sequel trilogy, where the fuck is Ahsoka? She is a huge question. But she still is a great character. There is some really good voice acting. Yes, of course, Christopher Lee does a great job as Count Dooku. I do think the guy who voiced him in the show does do a good job for the show. But, you know, come on. Nobody's ever going to top Chris Lee. And it is nice that Sam Jackson came back to give a couple voice lines for Mace. And we have a lot of great action scenes and also 2 fantastic lightsaber duels. First one, of course, being Obi-Wan versus Ventress. And this is where we get to see Obi-Wan start to become the master of trolling. I sense it too. Anakin is gone. You've lost. Lay down your weapon. Troll. And of course, we have Anakin's first, well, not first of his life, but the first animated Anakin Skywalker versus Count Dooku lightsaber duel of, I think, like 6 or 7 over the course of the TCW series. Like, god damn, these 2 are just always at each other's throats. Yeah, I like the film. And granted, it does have problems. Again, it feels like a TV movie. It either feels like a TV movie or it feels like a direct-to-video Disney film, like Tarzan and Jane or Cinderella 2, where it's like 3 or 4 episodes of the TV show stitched together into one movie. And as a result, the pacing of the film, I think, is very janky. It feels like the natural flow, like it's the rise and fall of a few episodes of a TV show. There is some cringy dialogue, and I will agree that, yes, there is some stiffy, very prototypey animation all throughout the film. Still, though, I dig the film. I don't give a shit what anybody says. Which
Did
one?
you ever... I wanted to ask, there were times, do you ever think at times of the movie he had to drop a big Count Dookie? A big Dooku?
No.
Okay, this is funny. All right. For me, okay, next one on my list is 2D Clone Wars. Now, now here's the thing. This is again where things start this is where I put it in the good category. We've gone through some of the kind of worst, the like least to kind of meh. This is the start of really dang good. I can't really hate everything going forward. But 2D Clone Wars is better than Attack of the Clones. Really amps up the action. It is a visual spectacle. And I actually put this over even the 3D Clone Wars show, namely because it is the entire Clone Wars abridged into a well-paced 2-hour film. If you take all the chapters, it's about a 2-hour and 8-minute movie. And how cool would it be to see this on the big screen even? Would be spectacular. I love everything about 2D Clone Wars, and I don't give a damn if they have retconned it. It's still canon to me. I don't give a damn. It's still, at least the first season, up to where Anakin is knighted, is still canon to me. The battle on Mutalisk is fantastic. Anakin's first fight with Ventress on Yavin 4, beautiful. The moment we meet Ventress and the confrontation with Dooku, fantastic. There are so many, and also seeing Ilum is amazing. I love the planet Ilum where the crystals are, where Luminara and Vera Sophie are. That shit slaps. And then we later find out, oh my god, by the way, I don't know if you know this, Nick, they've confirmed it, Star Killer Base was Ilum. The whole time. I was like, what? No wonder, because it's completely covered in kyber crystals. Now that's why they built it there. Now it makes sense. 2D Clone Wars, Gary Tarakovsky, love his work on the early days of Cartoon Network, Dexter's Lab, and even, like, you know, Samurai Jack is a masterpiece of animation. to basically the pitch was, let's do Samurai Jack with lightsabers, is amazing. I'm shocked there was never a cameo of a Jedi that looked like Samurai Jack. I'm surprised they never stuck him in there, because I need a cosplay of that. Samurai Jack as a Jedi. Give me something like that. I love 2D Clone Wars. I love it. You know who's a character that they've never brought? I'm shocked they never brought him back for 2D, because he had so much potential. Fucking Dirge. Dirge is a beast. A freaking beast. A lot of Akira in there. I loved 2D Clone Wars. I can't get enough of it. Grievous. Oh my god. I'm bust a nut. Grievous slaps in this show. He literally slaps Shaggy. Ultimate Instinct Shaggy. Done. Done. Like Zoink Scoop, I can't fight. It's like Zoink Scoop, we gotta get the hell out of here. I can't get enough of 2D Clone Wars, but this is where I was like, okay, this is good Star Wars. Going forward, this is all fantastic. Moving on.
My number 7 is Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope.
Hang on. I find your lack of faith disturbing. What are you, a Toydarian? What the fuck? I'm a Toydarian! Hey! All right, you're, I guess, a Gamorrean guard, okay.
Now, like I said in the original review, this movie being so low is not an insult. Well, it's not really low, but for me, this is the most middle-of-the-road film of the entire Star Wars franchise. It's smack dab in the middle. Now, not to say that it's equally good and bad, but there's just 6 other Star Wars movies that I like more than this. But that is not taking anything away from the original Star Wars. It is a classic. It's one of the greatest movies ever made. It's one of the most important films ever made. And what this movie did for cinema is monumental. And it almost cannot be, you almost can't do it justice how much this movie changed the scope of Hollywood and cinema, and how many people that this film inspired who make films nowadays, like Zack Snyder, for example. And I've said this before, this is one of the top 5 most ripped off movies in the history of cinema. King Kong, Gojira, Jaws, Star Wars. Can you think of any other film in the history of cinema that has had as many rip-offs and cash-ins made around it? No, you can't.
I mean, Terminator, Jurassic Park, Alien. Been a few of those.
Before the 70s. No, you can't, because there isn't any. So, yeah, this is a great movie. It's an amazing movie. It is a fabulous movie. But in the scope of the Star Wars franchise, there's just more that I like more than this. It's got an amazing original story. So much of this movie, if you're a huge fan of cinema, you can point and pick out and like say, hey, George Lucas was inspired by this for this. George Lucas was inspired by this for this. The overall story apparently is very similar, or at least has a lot in common with the plot of Akira Kurosawa's The Hidden Fortress, of which I've never seen, but apparently it's true. The Toho film Battle in Outer Space apparently had a big influence on this film. Samurai films had an influence on this movie, like with Darth Vader and the the rise of a rebel alliance against an overwhelming evil organization. That's a lot of Japanese tokusatsu films, like Kamen Rider. One or two Kamen Riders against Shocker. They may as well be the Galactic Empire. There's so much that George Lucas picked and chose from to craft and morph into such an original and monumental story, it's not even funny, and changed them around to the point where it felt so fresh and new. And in many ways, again, this movie is very fresh and new. There's an amazing setting and scope. It's in this whole brand new, never before seen kind of world and galaxy that is so fascinating and so huge and so rich and deep with lore. There's so many different alien species to showcase. It's almost overwhelming. There's amazing action scenes, an amazing musical score, fantastic special effects, prototypey special effects. And that leads into some of the issues that I have. While there is a lot to praise, there is also some chinks in the armor. There are some prototypey special effects. There are some stiff puppets and some stiff animatronics. Darth Vader is not very well done in this movie, in my opinion. He's the looming dark evil presence, sure, but Darth Vader is done in way better projects than this movie. Anybody cannot deny it, in my opinion. There's a very lackluster lightsaber duel. I get this was the first time something like this was ever done. An old aging man using a very shitty and flimsy looking lightsaber in a guy who's never ever done any kind of sword fight in a very bulky and uncomfortable and uncoordinated costume. It's still very lackluster and very prototypey. There are some iffy performances, namely Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker. He is kind of a whiner. What's that flashing? Why are we still heading towards it? I was going to go down and pick up some power converters. Uncle Lohan, this R2 unit is shot. Look, I'm never going to get out of here.
I mean, and by Tashi Station, you mean strip club, and by power converters, you mean hookers, right? Yes.
Yes. And I actually do kind of think that Harrison Ford is just a tiny bit unlikable in this movie. I get it, like Han Solo he's a criminal, he's a scumbag, he's a swindler and a schemer.
He's a pirate.
And I understand his like arc throughout the film. Like, even though he's kind of a scumbag, in the end he wants to do good and help the greater good, but still he doesn't give a strong first impression. He does get better in the next two films, in my opinion. Harrison Ford does a good job playing him, but Han Solo himself, just kind of a dick. But that's all I have to say, really. This is an amazing, spectacular, important, monumental film. But just in the overall scope of the franchise, it's smack dab in the middle. There's 6 other Star Wars films that I like way more than this. So if I was to marathon, this would not be one of my first picks to start with. That being said, again, I cannot stress, it's a fantastic film.
Next on my ranking is kind of interesting because it's sort of the remake of that. Is The Force Awakens is the next one. For me, it's as the start of the potential of what Disney could have done with Star Wars. As the Star Wars is back energy, it is really good. I think out of the sequel trilogies, it is the best one. It is.
I'll be right back. I gotta take a leak.
No worries. Gotta take a Jar Jar piss. It is well shot. It is all practical. It is all going for the look of the original trilogy. I find the villain is fascinating. The new characters are interesting. Han Solo and what happened to him, I knew was coming because Harrison wanted it for a long time. and I think it was well executed. I think JJ was the right choice. It was the safe choice, and it was the right choice to get us going. That being said, my biggest issue is the mystery box bullshit. The fact that, again, they did not have a overall 3-movie plan. This was, again, pulling shit out of their ass, and namely pulling shit out of their ass that would make the fans cream. It was essentially all about how do we get people back in theaters to like Star Wars again. And as the vocalists on the internet said, less prequels, more original trilogy. So that's why the movie ends up being A New Hope 2.0, because all it is a remake of A New Hope, story beats and all, with some modern takes put in. And it also, in a way, is sort of the first of the, sort of set the precipice of the live-action Disney remake formula. This sort of set the precipice. Do a remake of a classic, just add modern swings. That was one of the biggest issues. The world building is completely gone. That is its biggest crime in terms of the whole prequel, the whole trilogy. World building is thrown out the window like Mace Windu and is replaced with remember this, remember that, remember this, remember that. And yeah, this was, in my opinion, while Jurassic World came out the same year and was the biggest movie of the summer and Force Awakens overthrew it, this was the start of the nostalgia boom. This was the start of the great nostalgia boom and the beginning of the member berries era of cinema. It was all about nostalgia. It was all about remember this, remember that. Well, we're not going to do much building with it. Just look, there's the thing you like. Now buy a shit. It suffered for that. It had moments of fantastic moments to continue the series. And while over time it has aged a little bit, I could go back and feel the power I had when I first saw it. I will admit The Force Awakens, the second trailer that was shown at Star Wars Celebration in 2015, can go down as one of my favorite trailers of all time. That was a powerful trailer. I kind of cried at the trailer, like at Celebration. I was like, oh, Star Wars is back. But again, the fact it was the start of the nostalgia boom. It was driven by that. It was a remake of A New Hope. It set the precipice of live action remakes. And on top of that, I can't remember what it was. I had something in mind that I knew was an issue with this movie. Outside of all that, it is a competently well-made return to Star Wars. And out of all the Disney trilogy of the sequel trilogy, it is still the most entertaining and the most competent. It has a lot to explore still, but a good start, but that's pretty much all we got. There we go. There's my take on The Force Awakens. I'm trying to think what else I could say. I will say that when we find out, oh, the droid's on the Falcon in your hands of your own father, Han Solo, I was like, well, he's dead. Dead. Fucking dead. Hey, Harrison, you finally got your wish. Yeah, Force Awakens. Good movie. Has some problems.
Episode 6. Fuck. My number 6 is Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back.
Ooh.
Believe it or not, actually, this has grown on me a little bit. Not that I I used to hate this movie because it's overrated. Viciously, I used to absolutely shit all over this film. Not necessarily thinking it's one of the worst movies ever made, but I just really push back. I still do that to this day. I really push back against the mindset and opinion that this is the best of the franchise. And I strongly push.
The Nick Pyre pushes back.
I still strongly push back against the opinion that this is one of the greatest movies of all time, like one of the top 5 greatest movies of all time. Now, like A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back is a classic. It's an amazing movie. It is especially an amazing sequel. It's one of the greatest sequels of all time. It's up there with Terminator 2 and Aliens. It does a lot of those things that great sequels do. Expands on the lore, feels like a natural continuation of the story, brings back all the characters. It thankfully is not a complete rehash of the previous film, which is nice. It ups the stakes. It ups the ante. It is darker than its predecessor. It's an amazing film. It's got amazing special effects, which are a lot better than the first film. All the puppets and animatronics are much better. All the stop motion animation done by Phil Tippett is pitch perfect, top notch, especially the Imperial Walkers. I still stand by the opinion that stop motion works best for robots. And while the walkers aren't robots, they're essentially giant vehicles. They kind of do essentially function as giant robots, so it's fitting. There's a lot of great action scenes, and yeah, the expansion on the lore is much appreciated. The darker tone is much appreciated. Yoda is an amazing character. Darth Vader is awesome in this movie. He is just a fucking uncaring, unflinching monster in this movie. Luke Skywalker is mine, motherfuckers. Get out of my way. And he does have time to be a little sassy here and there too. We would be honored if you would join us. Perhaps you think you're being treated unfairly. Good. It would be unfortunate if I had to leave a garrison here. And the Bespin duel with Luke versus Darth Vader is a fantastic lightsaber duel. I do think it's a bit overrated as far as lightsaber duels are concerned, but it still is really good. But upon this recent viewing, I do kind of have to admit, I understand what the scene is going for when Luke finds out that Darth Vader is his dad. And I am aware, apparently, like the original script, either it was Obi-Wan Kenobi was actually his father, or
Obi-Wan killed your father.
Okay, yeah, that was the other one. But when Vader says, "I am your father," and the look on Mark Hamill's face, huh?
Also a fucking scorpion.
The look on Mark Hamill's face, especially when he goes, "No!" It's a little funny. I get the intent, and I get that was like Mark Hamill's genuine shock and reaction to hearing this twist. I do understand it. It's still a little funny. I know they didn't intend for it to be funny, but it is. But I don't really have very many issues per se with Empire Strikes Back. I do think the film is a bit too bleak at times, just tad too much for me. And I don't like that the film is one overly long ship chase, although it's not boring as fuck like The Last Jedi, but it does get a little repetitive seeing several like dodging asteroids and dodging Imperial TIE fighters and Star Destroyers all throughout space. It does get a bit tiresome by the end of the film. But the big thing that holds Empire Strikes Back for me is that I do still think that it is vastly overrated. It is one of the top 5 most overrated films in the history of cinema. Everybody and their mother loves this movie. And if I had $1 for every Star Wars fan I've heard say this is their favorite Star Wars film, I'd be rich enough to buy Star Wars and Disney and Marvel from Disney and shelve them and never release them ever again. I know that's a strange problem to have with a movie, but that's just how I feel. And similar to A New Hope, there's 5 other Star Wars films that I like more than this. And it doesn't help that this is the one Star Wars movie I've seen the most out of the whole franchise. It's a great film, and it has grown on me a little bit, obviously. Again, though, I just like more than this.
Okay. My next on my list is, ironically, the next one, Return of the Jedi. For me, as a finale to the original trilogy, perfect. 10 out of 10. Probably the best of the model miniature ship effects of the whole series. Listen, I don't care if people hate, like, the biggest issue is that you mentioned that it was the special editions is when people started to turn. I'm actually going to correct you. It was Return of the Jedi that made people started to hate it. Namely, the fact that it was the beginning of the merchandising juggernaut that Star Wars would become. This was the moment where people started to say, does George Lucas care more about the story or the fucking toys? Because the Ewoks, and namely all the aliens in Jabba's palace, make fucking bank. More fucking toys, plushies, action figures, backpacks, comics, just go, cartoons. Let's milk this fucking Bantha cow. Let's milk this Hutt's tail. Let's do it. That was the beginning. And I can see fans' concerns. But and I will also say, it is a bit of a rehash of episode 4. Big Death Star. Go through the trench. Go back to, we're on Tatooine again. Where we're doing all this shit all over again. And like, even down to like the opening shot is the Star Destroyer. Same angle. Again. Like, we're doing it again. So I can see why people were complaining. But again, this is a fantastic finale to the original trilogy. I love Luke's overall arc ending right here. He is a Jedi Knight. He is the last of the Jedi. He is going to bring the Jedi to the Sith in the final showdown. We have Darth Vader at his most conflicting, his turmoil, the moment he starts to switch sides and say, maybe the dark side ain't all that cooked out as it's supposed to be. We have Han and Leia finally kind of tie the knot in their relationship. 3PO and R2 are probably some of their funniest moments are here. We have Lando being fucking amazing in this. Lando is so cool in this movie. The Jabba the Hutt is a wonder of puppetry. Like, I kind of dig the fact that the first quarter of this movie is a fucking puppet show. It is a giant, it's time to light the Jabbas, it's time to hunt the Hutts. That's all it is.
Hold on.
And I like, yeah?
And we have Chewie's hilarious Tarzan yell.
Yeah, and also, I love the fact, to save money, they went to California to film in the Redwoods. Ironically, fun fact, go watch The Lost World again in the Stegosaurus area. Same location. They're basically on Endor. Like, Malcolm and all of them, they're on Endor. Give me an edit where they're fighting and you see a bunch of Stegosauruses coming through. That'd be hilarious. California Redwoods. And also, I will admit, out of the space battles, I'm very conflicted. I don't know if I like the original trilogy. I think the original, I'll bring it up later, has the more realistic kind of NASA communication kind of space battle. But I will say Jedi beats A New Hope. Like, the model effects are fantastic. But if there's one person, again, much like Rise of Skywalker, and much like a movie later on, Ian McDiarmid as Palpatine steals the show. He is, for the first outing, fantastic. Now, what's really funny is that I found this out later. There was one other actor potentially who was going to play the part. That being Tim Curry was almost going to play Palpatine in this. Now, what's ironic, while he didn't get to do it then, he would get to play the part at the tail end of the last 2 seasons of the Clone Wars, which he did pretty good. The transition is where he's like, "Don't worry, I'm not going to kill you. I have other plans for you." That is when Tim Curry took over, was at that line. But Ian McDiarmid will always be the Emperor. I love that final fight between Luke and Vader. I love Luke's green motherfucking lightsaber. That sound. The glow. It's so nice looking. The fight is fantastic. And also, I'm going to give credit to somebody who didn't get credit in the whole trilogy. Bob Anderson, the great sword master. Throughout A New Hope to Jedi, whenever Vader was fighting, that was Bob. Bob took over for David Prowse, and he did amazing. There is a lot to like about Jedi. I like the extra twist that with Leia being Luke's sister, and that explains a lot more, and their connection grows from here. There's a lot to like. The ending has me crying. When Luke buries his father, that's a pretty sad moment. That's a really concluding moment. I will admit, in terms of just special editions, as a minor nitpick, I think this has the worst changes. I'm not a fan of Jedi Rocks. I don't like that. The only time I felt the music was actually a good change, I prefer Victory Celebration over Yub Nub. And also, I actually now can accept the Hayden Christensen change. But outside of that, I still prefer the original version of Jedi to everything from everything up to the ending. But for me, Jedi is still this is the one when I was a kid I watched the most on VHS. And I have very much a childhood nostalgia for Jedi. So this is where I rank it. It's a good conclusion to the original trilogy.
Quick side note, I've actually been to the California Redwood Forest.
Oh, it's nice. Also, I love the title itself. While George wanted Revenge of the Jedi, I like that the title Return of the Jedi evokes the ending of another trilogy, The Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. I feel like that was George's intention. He said, "I'm going to make a nod to Return. This is going to be my Return of the King," which I think is very interesting. So,
my number 5, Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith.
Wow.
Sadly, I missed out on seeing this in theaters, unfortunately. Well, it didn't help that the movie had such a goddamn tiny-ass release date in its re-release. Ugh. I would have, but it was only back in theaters for 3 days because of the finale to Endor Season 2 that nobody gives a shit about. Whatever. I do think this obviously is the best of the Star Wars prequels. You may say that I am biased against it or biased towards it because I saw it in theaters, it being my very first. Oh, by the way, I've seen Revenge of the Sith in theaters. I saw Rogue One in theaters, and I saw The Last Jedi in theaters. Haven't seen one since. If the original trilogy get decently long re-releases come 2027, maybe I'll try to head out and see those in theaters, but only time will tell. But anyway, yeah, obviously it's the best of the prequels. I think it is one of the most entertaining installments of the entire franchise. Hayden Christensen's performance is much better than it was in Attack of the Clones. The dialogue and script feel much more polished and natural and good. Hayden does a lot of acting with his face and his body language that I think is really well done. There is amazing action scenes all throughout this movie. I think at least half of this movie is pure action. The first 23 minutes of this movie is one big long action scene. The heading towards the General Grievous's ship, dealing with the buzz droids, mowing down droids inside Grievous's ship. The final fight with Count Dooku, the encounter with Grievous and his bodyguards, the landing of the Invisible Hand. That's what it's called, I think. Yeah. The landing of the Invisible Hand on the surface of Coruscant. And it's perfectly capped off by another Obi-Wan Kenobi stinger. Another happy landing. Yeah, there's amazing fucking action scenes. Like, what one hell of a way to begin your third and final chapter for the prequel trilogy. Damn good. And the rest of the film has fantastic action. The fight between the Wookiees and droids on Kashyyyk. The Great Jedi Purge, Order 66, is hauntingly tragic. At times a little hard to watch, but I do get that is the point. The music is absolutely outstanding. I think this might be John Williams's either like overall for an entire film that he scores. Like the Duel of the Fates theme is really good for Phantom Menace, but only that's what mostly people remember from Phantom Menace. Everything else for the rest of the Star Wars franchise, people mostly just remember the opening theme. But I think Revenge of the Sith is when John Williams like really buckled down and tried to pump out an overall fantastic script. The music that plays when we meet hell, the music that plays in the opening scene when after the title crawl and we see the Battle of Coruscant, fantastic. The music that plays when General Grievous is introduced. What's the situation, Captain? Prepare for attack.
We're tracking them.
The music that plays when Palpatine has his like telepathic conversation with Anakin, like saying, "If they come to kill me, your wife will die." That like haunting, quiet choir music. It's creepy, but it's also just fantastic. And of course, the Battle of the Heroes theme is outstanding. And going back to Hayden Christensen's performance, when he gets burned, damn good. And it's really hard to watch at times too, but it's effective. The film is dark. It's probably the darkest and bleakest film of the entire Star Wars franchise. It's done in a good way, though. And I've said this before, this is probably the biggest example where, now generally, yes, I like a Hollywood ending. I like the good guys to win. But in this case, it is fitting that the bad guys win. It's tragic and sad, also done in a good way. There are a couple funny jokes, like R2-D2 shitting himself and lighting it on fire on top of two battle droids. It's funny. Don't move. Bzz, ah!
You have a plan B?
Activate ray shields. Ray shields.
Wait a minute.
How did this happen? Miss Moth is in
this. Apparently not.
Apparently not. Yes. R2 will be here in a few moments, and then he'll release the ray shields. Wow!
See?
No
problem.
No problem. Do you have a plan B?
It's great.
And of course, General Grievous is also a great villain. He's not the greatest showcase in this movie, but he is still a cool character, and he has an amazing voice. Ah, yes. The negotiator, General Kenobi. We've been waiting for you.
Excuse me.
That wasn't much of a rescue.
You're welcome.
And Anakin Skywalker. I was expecting someone of your reputation to be a little older.
General Grievous. Shorter than I expected.
Jedi scum.
We have a job to do, Anakin. Try not to upset him.
Your lightsabers will make a fine addition to my collection.
Not this time. And this time you won't escape. R2!
Crush them! Yeah, General Grievous is a great addition. And of course, the highlight of the entire movie is Ian McDermott as fucking Sheev Palpatine, aka Darth Sidious. He is fucking fantastic in this movie. It's definitely Ian McDermott's best performance of the entire series. The lightsaber duel with Palpatine versus the Council / Mace, I do think that's probably the weakest of the series. And I know there's a lot of debate online whether or not Palpatine threw the fight, like he was faking it in order to conscript Anakin to his cause, or whether Mace Windu really was that good of a swordsman. I know there's a lot of debate here or there, but I do think the intent of the film was to conscript Anakin to his cause. That definitely is a factor. But Palpatine is still, he's scary, he's creepy, but he is also kind of funny. Like, yeah, all the faces that he makes.
And it's like,
do it.
Do the Mace Windu line.
What?
Do the Mace Windu line. You have lost.
You have lost.
No, Daddy, I don't want to. You will die! He's a traitor!
Power! Unlimited power!
He just farts.
So yeah, Ian is kind of hammy and he is a little over the top, but I mean it is funny. But at the same time, it does make Palpatine a lot scarier. And Palpatine's lightsaber duel with Yoda is also a great spectacle. And it is also kind of sad and tragic to see Yoda of all people get hit. Well, Yoda puts up a fight certainly. But it is kind of sad and tragic to see such a powerful Jedi get his ass kicked. And I think this movie is one of the biggest examples, like one of the biggest epitomes of bittersweet. But I do have some problems. You can tell that there was a lot of missing footage. Upon this most recent viewing, it does have some janky pacing. And mostly it's in the first half. Like after the fight on the Invisible Hand, I think the movie does slow down quite a bit. But when they go to arrest Palpatine, from that point on, the movie is just near nonstop action and great spectacle. Oh, and wait, going back to the pros, we have 5 lightsaber duels, the most in a single film. Anakin and Obi-Wan versus Count Dooku, which is a great duel. Mace Windu and the Council versus Palpatine. Kind of lackluster, but I understand what they're going for. Obi-Wan versus General Grievous. It's cool, but it's a bit too short, but it is still entertaining. And of course, we have Yoda versus Darth Sidious. And of course, one of the top 5 greatest lightsaber duels of the entire franchise, the tragic Darth Vader versus Obi-Wan Kenobi, round 1. It's awesome. And it also showcased one of the greatest weapons ever seen in any fictional media, the power of the high ground. Anyway, so Anakin.
I have the high ground. You underestimate my power.
Don't try it.
Oh! He's like, oh!
But I do still think that, like, Count Dooku is painfully underused, and Christopher Lee is painfully underused. I think his death should have been saved for the middle of the movie. Having him killed off in the first 20 minutes just feels like kind of a waste. It is better if you have the Clone Wars show in mind. Same for General Grievous. But I also think that fight is kind of a waste too. But it's not really necessarily a problem, but the thing that really holds back Revenge of the Sith, aside from the janky pacing and knowing how much footage was cut, sometimes the movie is a little too hard to watch at times. Like, watching Padme die is tragic and sad. Watching the Great Jedi Purge and all these characters that you follow for the last 2 movies get slaughtered is kind of hard to watch. Watching Yoda get his ass kicked is hard to watch. And also watching Darth Vader get burned to a crisp and the pain and angst on Obi-Wan's face. Definitely, I've said this before, Ewan McGregor definitely gives his best performance in this movie. I'm sure he does good in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, and from what I've seen, he does do good. I just haven't seen it in full. But Ewan McGregor is just acting his ass off in this film. You were my brother, Anakin. I loved you.
Wait,
I hate you. It's hard to watch. And it's not necessarily... Sometimes it's not the most fun movie to watch. There are a lot of amazing action scenes. It's big, bombastic, and entertaining as fuck. But man, is it a heavy-ass movie. And, but still, damn good movie, damn good finale, entertaining as fuck Star Wars movie. I don't give a fuck what anybody says.
We're on the same page. Episode 3. I actually had the privilege of now seeing this twice in cinemas, the original release in 2005 and the 20th anniversary. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie immensely. Watching it again, watching it 20 years later, seeing visually how it's held up as a technical achievement, and also how powerful it is as a movie is great. I went on for 3 hours about this fucking movie about like 3 weeks ago of how good it was. One of the things I enjoyed was looking at the backgrounds in cinemas was crazy. I actually do maybe know why it was taken off so quickly in terms of like re-releases compared to Phantom Menace, because Phantom Menace had like a 1 week run, but so many people were saying we want to see it, they actually extended it to 2 extra weeks. So what I wonder is, why not Revenge of the Sith? Now, I think there's 2 factors. One, Captain America Brave New World. They wanted more tickets for Captain America. But mainly, I think the subject matter and the current state of certain places in the world kind of mirroring that to a pretty close, tight shift. I think that Disney got cold feet and said, this is too close. This movie now hits too close to home. We got to pull it out of theaters. I feel like they were probably thinking maybe a certain someone might have gotten pissed off and saying, hey, that's me. That's me. I don't know. I think there was maybe some pushback in terms of getting cold feet. I do think it's a shame they had such a close window compared to episode 1. But what's crazy is they were making money. That actually ended up being the most successful re-release of all time, actually. It made money. On the short window it did. It was breaking records. So I think it was cold feet from politics, and also cold feet because everybody was saying, hey, look, Disney, this is better than any of the pieces of shit you've been making. And they're like, oh, fuck, we need to sell our stuff. People like this too much. Oh, no, George wants a cut. Oh, no. But it was, I had a very good time watching it in theaters again. I will say, though, I say this in my review, the movie's been memed to shit. It's been memed to oblivion. And when I saw it with Josh, every single time a meme was coming, he would literally just do this. He saw it coming and he's just like, ugh. So, although to be fair, audience's reactions were great. When Obi-Wan said hello there, that got a standing ovation. When the fights were happening, it was getting applauded. I will admit, watching it again, I was reminded of 20 years ago. Some of the acting, despite being hokey, was entertaining. Like, I remember when I had flashbacks of seeing this 20 years ago. Oh, yeah. When Palpatine was making faces, everyone in the theater was howling. Josh, I can hear Josh snickering next to me. He's just like, oh my God. We're laughing our asses off.
Hello there.
General Kenobi. The part I actually kind of giggled at, we heard in the audience too, is where, Anakin's like, you're so beautiful. There were stickers. It was pretty bad. It was like a school play. It was funny. It was relatively funny.
No loose wire jokes. Did I say anything?
He's
trying. I didn't say anything.
But it was fun. It was fun to see it again. And I've said everything in my review. I only have a few issues. I do think the way they handled the knighting of Darth Vader was ass. Was not. It was rushed.
Henceforth, you shall be known as Darth Vader.
Yeah, like you had to think about it, dude. Like, Vader is supposed to mean something like father, power, men. There's no meaning to these names, and I stand by. He pulled it out of his ass. Like, it was so rushed. The great Patrice O'Neill said it best. He's like, you shall be known as Darth Vader, and we're out. What? Give me the background on why. That's what I was waiting for. Like, listen, we were all waiting for him to become Darth Vader, but what we wanted was some weight. We wanted to know, what is the purpose of, we knew he was going to get in the costume. What is the purpose of his name? His name! What meaning do you give it other than you've got a cool, badass name?
Right.
That's it? That's it?
Right.
There you go. He literally belched it. I turned to Josh and did he just belch it fucking rice? Holy shit. He's like, is this like rice? Oh, sorry, I drank a shitload of Red Bulls the other day. I will admit though, watching it, it's a blast. It is fun. And out of all the prequels, it's a solid finale. It's up there with Jedi. I will admit, outside of Rise of Skywalker, the episode 3 and episode 6 are solid finales to their respective trilogies. I love Revenge of the Sith. I think I've come to appreciate it a lot more, and I had a blast. And if you want my opinion on it, check out my 3.5 hour ass review.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, plug, plug. Shameless promotion. Go right ahead.
Right at my ass.
My number 4, Star Wars Clone Wars 2003. Okay, yes. Star Wars The Clone Wars is my all-time favorite TV show. Yes. But I will have to agree is that as a cohesive, truncated, sure, but as a cohesive, natural progression of the Clone Wars, and as a middle piece between the events of Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, 2D Clone Wars is a much more satisfying piece of Star Wars than almost the entirety of 3D Clone Wars. Even though that show brought back Darth Maul and brought in Savage Opress, and it's got amazing lightsaber duels and amazing action all throughout it, this does work better as a progression throughout the Clone Wars leading into Revenge of the Sith. It has a way better depiction of General Grievous. I actually will. So Jensarai 1, the YouTuber, is a huge hater of 3D Clone Wars. But I will agree with him that TCW Grievous is vastly inferior to both Revenge of the Sith and 2D Clone Wars. He's a complete buffoon throughout the course of that show. And his skill with the lightsaber is not even half as good as it is in 2D Clone Wars and Revenge of the Sith. He's just made it to be a complete incompetent, bumbling buttfuck throughout the show. And it takes away a lot of the finality between Obi-Wan and Grievous's duel in Revenge of the Sith, because throughout the entirety of 3D Clone Wars, Obi-Wan is just making a complete fool out of Grievous several times over the course of the show. Like, whereas I have a similar issue with Anakin versus Count Dooku in Revenge of the Sith, because Anakin and Dooku had several duels throughout the course of the show. It kind of just feels like Anakin could have easily just taken out Dooku long before the events of Revenge of the Sith. But it's even worse because Obi-Wan is obviously so much more skilled than TCW Grievous for the entirety of TCW. But for 2D Clone Wars, Grievous is a monster. And he's awesome and entertaining as fuck. We'd never seen somebody pick up lightsabers and casually and easily slaughter Jedi the way that Grievous does in this series. And it's so... His first appearance when he kills Shaggy is shocking and quite violent and brutal for Star Wars. And watching him slaughter these other Jedi that are working with dickhead Ki-Adi-Mundi is, again, quite shocking and surprising. Yeah, Grievous in this series is a freaking powerhouse. Had Mace Windu not crippled Grievous, in my opinion, I actually don't think Obi-Wan would have been able to defeat Grievous, in my opinion. That's just me. But aside from Grievous, the show has fantastic animation. I'm a big fan of Samurai Jack, and this is just literally right up my alley. It is Samurai Jack with lightsabers, and I'm all for it. And because it's Genndy Tartakovsky, and actually, in my opinion, a painfully underrated animation guy and an animation filmmaker, there's amazing visual storytelling, fantastic music, great animation and great facial expressions with all the characters and great body language. It's very colorful. It's very bombastic. There's a crap ton of action scenes that are so... I miss this fucking era of animated shows for kids. I miss early Cartoon Network. I miss late 90s and early to mid 2000s Cartoon Network so much, because we had Samurai Jack, Courage the Cowardly Dog, Dexter's Laboratory, Teen Titans. There's so many great Cartoon Network, Codename Kids Next Door. So many shows from the early 2000s on Cartoon Network, and all of them have fallen into obscurity, unfortunately. I desperately wish that... No, granted, Primal proves that shows like this can still be made and people will still dig it, but it's just such a shame that nowadays people want shows like Adventure Time or the regular show. I'll take stuff like Samurai Jack and 2D Clone Wars any day. So going back to 2D Clone Wars, yeah, great action scenes, fantastic lightsaber duels, Dooku versus Ventress. It's brief, but it's still cool. Anakin versus Ventress on Yavin 4 is spec-fucking-tacular. Obi-Wan versus Dirge is awesome. Anakin's knighting as a Jedi and his subsequent freeing of the people on that planet when he destroys his prosthetic arm. Great scene. Fun fact, though, this is actually the very first time I've seen all of 2D Clone Wars in one sitting. I have Volume 1 on DVD, but I do not own Volume 2 because I think it's out of print. But, yeah, this show fucking kicks ass. My one issue, it's not even really an issue, but it's too short. I want more of this badass Gendy Tartakovsky Samurai Jack Star Wars action. I want more. This is ultimate animated Star Wars. I love TCW. It's my favorite show of all time. But this is where it's at for animated Star Wars. Love it.
Yep, it's a great show. Okay, next up for me is Empire Strikes Back. I will give this movie credit that this is, I won't say it's like people say, oh, is it the best movie ever made? No. But is it one of the best sequels of all time? I can actually say yes. This is a peak sequel. There is a lot more at stake with this one. I love seeing Luke, all the heroes go through this trial and error. This is how you do peak second chapter storytelling, where any person who makes a sequel, and when they say this is the Empire Strikes Back of this series, that is a clear sign that the villains will lose, or the heroes will lose. That something is going to happen that's going to really drop the ball. Sometimes it's true, sometimes it's not with other franchises, but Empire set the standard of how to do a sequel. What's crazy about Empire is that at the time, sequels weren't as successful or common. Even before Empire came out, most sequels did not fare compared to the first one. The last sequel, I think that actually was the one franchise sequel that came out before Empire that did solid numbers, but again, wasn't the first one, was Jaws 2. Or
Rocky 2.
Or Rocky
2 came out in 1979, and it won Best Picture.
Really?
I think it might have, or at least it was nominated.
Yeah. No, Godfather 2 actually was the standard of the first successful sequel. I think it was Godfather 2 was the standard. That won Best Picture. I think that is the only sequel next to Return of the King to win Best Picture. It was the only sequel to ever win a Best Picture. But with Empire, I think what Empire did was it was the first financially successful sequel, that it surpassed expectations, that it surpassed box office numbers. I know it did a little bit less than Star Wars, but it still showed that we are in a new era where sequels can do as good as the first, if not better. And Empire proved it. It is a dark chapter. It raises the stakes. The effects are phenomenal. It is a classic film. I actually put it on par with the original. And with a few minor issues. I will say, for kids, this one's actually a little confusing. As I was a kid, I was a tad confused by this one. But also, I find the twist has not aged well. Not for the fact that it's a good twist, but the fact that every person in the world, in the universe, knows this twist. One of the most, people, when you've never seen Star Wars, most people know who Luke is. Most people know who Vader is. Good guy, bad guy. That's all they need to know. But Star Wars, unfortunately, suffers where the twist is the most iconic line in the series. Everybody thinks of, "May the Force be with you," and
Planet of the Apes syndrome.
And "I am your father." Those are two of the greatest movie quotes of all time. And it is sad that the sequel's twist is one of the greatest quotes, because then everybody knows what's going to happen. It does spoil it, which is why in my Revenge of the Sith review, I actually do argue that Episode 3 had the better twist. If you watch Star Wars from 1 to 9, seeing Vader's rise, realizing, wait. The guy we've been following was Darth Vader the whole time? And then you have to realize, oh my God, Vader's Luke's oh, shit! And you find all that out in that knighting of Darth Vader. Then to find out that Leia is Luke's sister. It's like, oh, shit! It kind of dwarfs Empire's whole twist. So it's the only flaw I have with Empire. Outside of that, it's perfect. It's good. I think while I like other films coming up, It is one of the definitive sequels.
So real quick, Rocky 2 wasn't quite as successful as the first Rocky film, but only by about $25 million.
Okay.
So it still was a very well-received sequel. It still makes it pretty rare for sequels at the time for it to be maybe not as praised quite as much as the first Rocky film, but for the amount of praise that it got was not common for sequels at the time still.
Mm.
My number 3 is Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. I
Wow.
don't give a flying fuck what anybody says about The Rise of Skywalker. I dig the living shit out of this movie. Now, hang on. I will give you some credit for its flaws. It is a flawed film. The film the whole trilogy, the whole sequel trilogy lacks the Knights of Ren. We'd seen them in one flashback in The Force Awakens, and then they just pop up randomly in The Rise of Skywalker, and they have a couple scenes, and they're just abruptly and randomly killed off by Ben Solo at the end of this movie. And they should have had red lightsabers. So, like, what's the backstory behind the Knights of Ren? What do they even look like under their armor? Are they humanoids? Are they all humans? Are they aliens? What? What are even their names? Why do their weapons look so shitty? Yeah, the Knights of Ren are a big question mark. It is missing that 2.5 hours of cut footage badly. And I actually think, God, it's hard, but I think this is the one that suffers the most from all of its cut content. And that leads into it. Really, in my opinion, it's the third act of this movie that feels the most janky. Like, there should have been a lightsaber duel between Ben Solo and the Knights of Ren, and there should have been a lightsaber duel between Kylo Ren and Rey versus Palpatine. Or if you didn't want to have Ian McDiarmid, because I don't know how old he is, but I do know he is up there. If you didn't want to have him even do stunt doubles, him using lightsabers, I agree with Jackie Boy's opinion that Palpatine should have unveiled like a squadron of like 30 or 40 dark Jedi, all wielding lightsabers, and Rey and Ben should have cut them down one by one, finally getting to Palpatine, and then they could have had a force duel. Yeah, the final fight between Rey and or Rey mostly and Palpatine is kind of underwhelming and is kind of anticlimactic. Though the scene when Palpatine rejuvenates himself and he fires that massive force storm to the sky, obliterating the entire Rebel fleet, is a great sight to behold. It's like, whoa, damn, this is like unleashed EU Dark Empire style Palpatine. Like, holy fuck. And the elements of the film incorporating from Dark Empire, they do feel a bit forced and they do feel a bit out of place. And the twist that Rey is Palpatine's granddaughter, I see where they're going for with it, but I still think it does kind of come out of nowhere. And it also does feel like it goes against what Force Awakens and even Last Jedi were trying to build up to. Like, there was absolutely no like evidence or even sign that they were even remotely leading up to this movie. I always got the sense that they were gonna like do another twist regarding Anakin Skywalker, in that she is like a another parthenogenesis of the Force, to like mirror because what the Force did with Anakin, it failed because he got burnt to a crisp and died and never achieved his full potential. The Force tries again with Rey, but then to have him be Palpatine's offspring, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I see where they're going for with it, but it doesn't make much sense. But the biggest problem with The Rise of Skywalker, this is kind of a big double-edged sword for me. But the film undoubtedly is monumentally, overwhelmingly rushed. And yes, I do agree that this movie does feel like a lot of damage control for the events of The Last Jedi. And yes, I agree, it tried to please everybody, but most of all, it tried to please Star Wars fans. But unfortunately, because of the 1-2 punch combo of The Last Jedi and Solo, I think at this point, Star Wars fans just stopped caring. And that's why this movie made $1 billion, but it still is one of the least revered installments of the franchise. I still don't give a fuck. 2019 is my favorite year of cinema, of the entire history of cinema. And I think this is one of the best films of 2019. It's overwhelmingly almost entertaining as all live and fuck. While it is very rushed and it flies at 1,000,000 miles an hour, it's just go, 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 go. It already has kind of become a meme, but I see a future prequel style meme surrounding somehow Palpatine has returned. I mean, it is kind of stupid, but at the same time, I still think it's kind of funny. But I like the go get 'em attitude that everybody has in this movie. We're just like, you know what? Fuck it. Palpatine's back. Let's just end this shit. Everything he throws at us, we're just going to fight the best to our abilities through it. And we're going to take down the Final Order. And we're going to take down Palpatine. Shoot these down. Cut these down. Destroy all of these. Let's just go, 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 go. Let's just end this fucker. I like that assholes and elbows camaraderie feel. I do think that there are a lot of amazing special effects in this movie too, like the big desert snake animatronic looks fantastic. A lot of the CGI and action scenes with the effects are all done very well. It's very colorful. There's a lot of vibrant reds and greens and blues, which is very pleasing to look at. The film feels epic. I'd actually say I think it feels the most epic of all the finales. It doesn't quite stick the landing the best. Actually, no. I would agree that it probably does stick its landing the least of the 3 big finales. It's still good enough for me, though. And we have 2 fantastic lightsaber duels, especially the one on the remains of the second Death Star. Fantastic lightsaber duel between Kylo Ren and Rey. There's a lot of great fan service, too, like the cameo of Wicket and his son, played by Warwick Davis and his son. That's a pleasant surprise. The return of what's his name?
Lando?
The actor who plays Lando.
Billy D. Williams.
Yeah, Billy D. Williams coming back as Lando is a welcome return. This movie definitely utilizes Chewie at its very best. I actually think Chewie kind of shines his brightest because he does interact and assist the main characters in their situations the most in this movie, and he kicks a lot of ass. And the scene when he finds out that Leia died, heartbreaking, but it's pretty damn well done. And it is kind of sad when you realize all of Chewie's family are gone. Chewie is the last man standing of the OG characters, aside from 3PO and R2-D2. Yeah, Chewie is awesome. There's a lot of great action scenes. Palpatine is creepy as fuck as like a half-dead, decaying Force ghost zombie. Yeah, does a really good job. Ian McDiarmid kills it, as always. Yeah, Rise of Skywalker kicks fucking ass. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. It does have some flaws, unfortunately. You know, to be honest, if this was the story that they were going to go for, they should have done 2 movies. They should have made this a 2-part finale. Like, fuck making it a trilogy. They should have done 4.
1 to 10.
Yeah, why not?
Even it out.
But still, in its current state, The Rise of Skywalker, for me, it kicks ass. I love it. I don't give a fuck what anybody says.
Okay, on my end, we're at the tail end. All right, so I'm in my top 3. So my third choice is Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. When I choose the top 3, I'm going by the era. Rogue One is for me the best of the Disney era. While yes, feels a little bit like, okay, we're just doing spin-offs now to cash in. What they did to create the Death Star plan heist was actually like not bad for a spin-off. And for the first spin-off, it did its job. While I would say 2/3 of this movie are a little slow, I kind of have to get used to these characters. I have to get used to this tense plot. And we're not used to, no lightsaber fight or anything like that. When we get to that third act, I'm just going to say hands down, the third act is by far the best space battle of all the Star Wars movies. I was in IMAX theaters with my friends seeing this, and we were in the front row. When that battle started, it was like, I felt like I was back on fucking Star Tours at Disneyland. Not The Adventures Continue. The OG Star Wars attacking the third facade Death Star and with Captain Rex and try to get through it. I was having a blast. There is one POV shot where the camera is mounted next to the ship and we're flying with it. And I felt like I was on a roller coaster going straight down into the shield generator going, whee! It was so much fun. And not only is it the best space battle, it's hands down the best Star Wars battle. You could retitle the third act Battlefront the movie. Land, sea, air, everything was on the table in this final battle. I wish we got another Star Wars battle like this. That was this grandiose. What's crazy is that being a spin-off, you don't expect it to be this massive scale and epic. But actually, this battle did dwarf the fight in The Force Awakens a year prior. This was a huge fight. Massive. And literally, I was not expecting them to put Rebel spaceships striking for freedom have won their first victory against the evil empire. I wasn't expecting them to actually adapt that. So that whole fight at the end is spectacular. Darth Vader is the one thing we can all agree Disney has not fucked up. Out of all the things in Star Wars that Disney has respected, it's Darth Vader. They know the character, they know how to use the character, and they know how to not fuck up the character. I will actually give Disney credit and actually a little bit of a pause to George Lucas, because we waited, when Vader showed up in episode 3, we waited almost 27 years for the return of Darth Vader to kick some ass and show what he was made of. The fact that he is in the suit for like maximum 2 minutes, maybe a minute of screen time, and just there to go, no! And that's all we get. I'm sorry, that was unacceptable. And that's where I say, you know what? Disney had the advantage. Apparently, the hallway scene with Darth Vader was a reshoot. Was something that was filmed and done 2 months before release. Because literally, the studio was looking at Gareth Edwards and saying, yeah, we know you want to tell the story, but the e-ticket here is Darth Vader. And if you don't have him do something fucking cool, people are going to forget. This movie's going to be boring as shit. That hallway scene, I think, like, while the big space battle was incredible, Darth Vader at the end pretty much sold the film. It was the grand fireworks finale to that whole battle, and it was crazy. It was just cool to see him basically go all Jason Voorhees, Jason X. I love Jason X. You shut the fuck up. I love Jason X. Him going full on Jason on the fucking rebels. And it was shot like a horror film. I will say this. Make Darth Vader scary again worked. And that is something that Disney, even in Obi-Wan, have done. And Rebels. They have made Darth Vader scary. And I love how it's all focused on everything between episode 4 and episode 3 and episode 4. Peak Vader is horrifying. And the movie showed, yeah, you wanted Darth Vader movie? We're thinking about it. We don't know if we'll do it. I think it's a matter of they're waiting to do a Darth Vader movie, but they know that they want to give it some time because they know that if they rush this out to milk it, they're going to fuck it up. And it's the one thing, give them credit. They know not to fuck that up. And actually, what's sad, I think next to Rise of Skywalker, with that one line, this was the final time we'd see James Earl Jones as Darth Vader. This in episode 9. Because in Obi-Wan Kenobi, that was using AI. It was the final time we'd ever see him do Darth Vader was mainly in Rogue One. It is the one thing I'm a little bit, okay, I understand you want to get James back, but it's you can tell he's tired. You can tell he's done. I actually think it worked better in Rise of Skywalker because it is sort of an aging voice. So to hear that whole inside your head, like from an aging James Earl Jones is where it works. But to have him do all this dialogue, it's one of those things where I've seen people take the dialogue and replace it with episode 4 James Earl Jones using AI, and it works a lot better. But it for the most part, Rogue One, I haven't watched Andor yet. I have heard the opposite. I heard it is I do agree it's very Game of Thrones, but it's a political drama, and it really gets down the politics of the Empire, and it does it to terrifying effect. But I loved Rogue One. I think out of the entire Disney era, it is the best Star Wars film from Disney. Out of their entire library, that is the best thing they ever produced.
So you are right that Rogue One was the last major thing that James did for Darth Vader. Season 2 of Star Wars Rebels started airing June 20th of 2015. And he is pretty prominently featured in that season, but Rogue One came out in 2016. So yeah, you're right.
Actually, I think it was Rise of Skywalker, though, with that one line where it's like,
I said major stuff.
But again, with that 4-hour cut, it makes you wonder, was James in any other scenes? Was there any other lines that was cut? You know, you never know.
Maybe. Okay, so my number 2, Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens.
Wow.
I actually kind of struggled a little bit to figure out if this is my number 2. But yes, definitively I am saying it is number 2. Hold on. One quick second.
I'm actually kind of surprised.
We've talked before about how 2015 was the beginning of the Hollywood Renaissance and the beginning of the member berries and nostalgia boom. I was all for it. And I still am all for it. And I do think that Episode 7 is one of the best films of 2015. And I kicked myself in the ass. I had the opportunity to go see it in theaters, but I decided not to because I was scared. And yeah, I was very scared and skeptical, very similar to Jurassic World, that this movie was going to suck. And I just kept putting it off and putting it off and putting it off, just thinking, God, I don't know how like Disney Star Wars. Am I going to be seeing Darth Vader dancing around with a cane and top hat? And you know, I don't want to see that. Yeah, no, thank you. I don't want to see that.
Baby, my heart's on fire.
Oh my God, no. Oh shit, turn that off. But yeah, I just kept thinking, God, I don't know. I don't know. How is this gonna turn out? So I saw the trailer. I saw a couple lore videos because of Stupendous Wave, and I saw a couple reviews, and I did a little bit of research, and I was thinking, it sounds really cool, but I just still don't know. So like I said, when I was babysitting my sister, I just finally I noticed that my dad and stepmom had Force Awakens on DVD. So I was just like, kind of like with Jurassic World, just do it. Fuck. Put on the fucking movie. And I put it on, and I'm enjoying the film, and like thinking, oh, okay, damn, this actually is pretty damn good. I'm digging this. But it wasn't until one certain scene where it just finally hit me. And this is what set off my obsession with Star Wars for the next near 2 years.
What was the scene? Ah.
Yeah, I was like, oh, okay, I'm for it.
Let's
Star
go.
Wars is back, bitches. Yeah, let's fucking go. And so, of the ones that I really like, this is the one that I have seen the least. I've seen this movie now 5 times. And while I'm not going to necessarily say I like it less every time I see it, but unfortunately, it's just never impacted me the same way that it did the first time I saw this. But Force Awakens is still a masterpiece of a movie. Now, granted, yeah, it doesn't adapt any material from Legends continuity. And it does make things up as it goes along. Like, it's funny how a lot of people like to criticize the prequels for a long time, saying George Lucas was making it up as he went along and he didn't have a plan. No, all those same criticisms that they threw at the prequels, you definitely can throw at the sequel trilogy, and they're all valid and they all fit. Yes. But still, this is the one of the sequel trilogy where Disney felt confident, like saying, okay, we're just going to come together. We're going to put our heads together. We're going to pay Harrison Ford $100 million to get off his ass and come back to Star Wars. And we're just going to make the this is the only one of Disney Star Wars where it actually feels like Disney actively wanted to make a good movie. They didn't just want to make a big money maker, even though it certainly pulled off with it having the massive fucking budget that it had, and it made a butt-fuck ass ton of money. This is the only one where it feels like Disney both wanted to make a good movie and also a good money maker. And those desires and intentions were equal at the same time. And there are a lot of things to like about this movie, in my opinion. It's got amazing special effects. And because it had a, let's see. No.
Wait, how much was that? 250 million?
447 million net budget and a $533 million gross budget.
Fuck me with an aardvark.
It shows all of the sets, all of the practical effects, all the puppets, all the animatronics, all the ships. It all looks top notch. Big budget, big money, big studio. This was Jurassic World had their foot in the door, but I do think it was The Force Awakens that truly showed Hollywood and mainstream like viewers and fans that yeah, we can return to practical effects. We can have a lot of digital effects, which is fine, but this is the movie that, in my opinion, proved to people that you can perfectly hybridize practical effects and digital effects, and the film will still hold up. And 10 years later, I think this movie does still hold up. All the digital special effects are really good. All the practical special effects are fucking top notch. The sets are great, costumes, everything. It's all spectacular. I will give one minor criticism is that yes, I do think this movie has the weakest soundtrack, and it has the weakest opening title crawl. It sounds very subdued, and it's like the least bombastic Star Wars opening crawl in my opinion. It should have been the most bombastic in my opinion, which ironic. I actually think The Phantom Menace has the best opening title crawl music. Oh, okay. Excuse me. The film has amazing fan service. Not quite as much, in my opinion, as The Rise of Skywalker, but whereas that movie had a bunch of it spread out over most of the film, here they savored the fan service for select moments. Biggest of all being Chewie. We're home. Love it. And also when the Force theme plays when Rey retrieves the lightsaber. I love it.
The one scene I do like is when Finn picks up the lightsaber. Although I thought it would have been really cool where he's like, he picks up the lightsaber, Kylo Ren's like, that lightsaber, it belongs to me. And then the
Don't
thing
get
is,
it.
I wanted Finn to pick up that lightsaber and be like, come get it, motherfucker! I wanted him to just scream, come get it, motherfucker.
Yeah, the fan service is all fantastic. I do like the story. Like I said, it does feel like a proper natural continuation of the original trilogy. It has amazing action scenes. I wouldn't say there's a lack of action, but kind of like what movie was it? There's like sprinklings of quick action scenes all throughout the course of the film. So the movie does move at a pretty good clip and a good pace. By the way, going back to the music real quick, I love the piece of music that plays when Kylo Ren first leaves his ship and he meets up with Max von Sydow. I like that little piece of music. I do like Kylo Ren as a character, even though he's very derivative of Jason Solo. Still, he is cool, and Adam Driver does do a good job playing him. I like his costume. I do like his lightsaber. I love his helmet, although I like how it looks in The Rise of Skywalker more. I like the red cracks. It makes it look a little more badass, in my opinion. But I love the voice. I really like the character of Finn. There is one thing about Finn that I want to talk about, but I'll save that for one of my few cons. But him as a character, he is engaging. He is somewhat sympathetic. And he is entertaining too, in my opinion. And watching him be brave and pick up a lightsaber and start cutting down stormtroopers and put up a fight against Kylo Ren is really cool. And speaking of which, there's also a fantastic lightsaber duel between Rey and Kylo Ren on the snowy planet of Starkiller Base. That's honestly one of my favorite lightsaber duels of the entire series, purely just because of the colors. It's at night in the snow, and it makes the red and blues pop that much more. So it's a very, very pleasant film to look at, in my opinion. And I actually do like Rey as a character. Now, she's a Mary Sue. I don't give a shit what anybody says. Even Daisy Ridley herself has tried to say that Rey is not a Mary Sue. Yes, she is, in every sense of the word. She's magically fantastic and better at like tinkering with mechanics than any other character who's twice or even 3 times her age, who's been dealing with machines their entire lives. She magically understands droid language and any other alien language. She somehow conjures the knowledge of how to use the Force in the snap of a finger, the Jedi mind trick and telekinesis, and learning how to use a lightsaber. And she just so happens to know what to do at the perfect time, where to go at the perfect time. Yeah, she is a Mary Sue. I don't give a shit what anybody will say. And it has nothing to do with me not liking strong women. Star Wars is full of strong female characters. Princess Leia, Mara Jade, Ayla Secura, Ahsoka even. I like strong female characters in Star Wars, but I don't like the lazy writing that's associated with Rey as a character. And now I can see somebody theorizing, saying like the reason why Rey is so naturally good at using the Force is because she's Palpatine's blood, which I could see that. But even that's lazy writing too. Just like easily explaining, oh, like she's descended from Palpatine. She disinherited a bunch of his power. That's it. That's still lazy, guys. But still, I do like Rey as a character. I do think she is interesting. I do think she is like engaging to watch, and Daisy Ridley does do a really good job playing her, even if like she does come off as being naive. She does come off as being a bit dense and stubborn at times. But she's sympathetic, she's engaging, she's enjoyable. She has good chemistry with all the other characters. Like her bond with Finn and Han Solo, I think is very believable. And well, a lot of that too, I do think is just Daisy Ridley being Daisy Ridley. She still makes Rey a likable enough character for me. So I cut her a lot of slack. I do have a couple minor issues though. Luke Skywalker is an afterthought. It's kind of funny how in the opening title scroll of the Return of the Jedi, it begins with Luke Skywalker has returned. And at the beginning of episode 7, Luke Skywalker has vanished. And I get that the movie is like the whole point of it is to search for Luke, but to have him appear literally in the last minute of the movie, Mark Hamill doesn't even say a single word. It just feels like a bit of a misstep. Han Solo's death is also pretty shocking and kind of feels like a punch to the gut. But this isn't really a problem with the movie itself, but this movie set up a lot of things that showed a lot of potential and a lot of promise. And it's just a shame how Disney, at first, they went out of their way to not deliver on that promise. And then they tried too hard to course correct it, and they ended up fumbling it in the end, unfortunately. So that's kind of a weird problem to have. But ultimately, I still don't care. Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, is a masterpiece. I love it. It's one of my favorite Star Wars films of all time. It's one of my favorite films of all time. And we said this about Jurassic World in the same way that Jurassic World is a love letter to Jurassic Park. The Force Awakens, very much so, is J.J. Abrams just showing us how much he loves A New Hope, but also just showing us how much he loves Star Wars. And I'm all for it.
For me, my number 2, Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. I have so much nostalgia for this. I was there in 99. I was there when the hype was huge. I was the target demographic. I was the one who bought the toys. bought the lightsabers, bought the costumes, bought the freaking Taco Bell of Newt Gunray, the Trade Federation. Oh, this is getting up the hand. Now, the Atuta Pan. No. I bought the shit. I played the video games. I like Jar Jar. There's so much to like about Phantom Menace. I brought it up in my review. Like, I think it is a monumental moment for Star Wars because it was the first, like, it was pretty much the return of one of the greatest pieces of literature of our time. I love the cast. I love the effects. It's the most practical of the three. The lightsaber duel is of absolute legendary status. Like, that will go down in history as one of the greatest sword fights of cinema. Not just for the fight choreography by the great Nick Gillard, but John Williams' music is beyond epic. But one of the reasons why I put it so close is because that movie, the hype for it, is what finally told me, hey, little Jack, like 7-year-old Jack, pick up your parents' camera and let's go make a movie. What movie do we make? Watch as Muppet Babies capitalizing on Phantom Menace hype by playing one of their Star Wars episodes. And I say, let's go make episode 1 before episode 1. It is the film that did finally tell me, pick up a camera and make a movie. And so I owe a lot to episode 1. A childhood classic. An absolute, complete nostalgia trip. A well-made film, and also just what finally kicked me right in the fucking ass and said, get your ass up and make something. And look where I'm at today because of Phantom Menace. I could go on. I've done my review. You can check it out there. But Phantom Menace, pure nostalgia, pure magic, a pure return to Star Wars, and my complete kick to making movies. So, there you go.
I can only imagine how much money your parents spent on you when this movie was coming out.
Oh my God! We had a Star Wars party. We made a cake. We had the movies playing. We bought, my parents bought as much merchandise as they could when this came. There were newspapers that had a little R2-D2 ad that said 20 days till episode 1, 15 days, 10 days. Like, there was a countdown on the newspapers. It was that insane. I'll never forget it. So, and in total, it is the Star Wars movie I have seen the most in cinemas. In a grand total, I have seen Phantom Menace now 7 times in theaters. 5 when it came out, 5 times in theaters when it came out. The re-release in 3D and the re-release last year, and it was wonderful. Also, I have very close fond reasons to like it. I showed Honey Bear episode 1. We went to see it in cinemas, and then afterwards she said, you know what? Let's watch the rest. And we watched the rest. So I owe a lot to Phantom Menace. I owe a lot to that movie that everybody hated. So there you go.
Then you're not a real Star Wars fan, BigJackFilms.
Oh, so is the movie good then? No! You know what I love? That build, I love using, that's the second time I've used that build-up music. That was actually from Thomas the Tank Engine when the trains are about to crash. It's perfect.
So my number 1 favorite Star Wars film of all time is Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi.
Ooh, wow. To quote Yoda, unexpected dishes.
I admittedly though, I have only one minor problem, and I'm just gonna get it out of the way right now. Well, this isn't really a con either, but I do think the Emperor doesn't have, like, Palpatine doesn't have a whole lot of screen time, and it's kind of a shame that he's built up as this big bad be all end all evil villain. but I think he has barely 10 minutes of screen time in this movie. But I don't like that there's the lack of a fight between Luke and Palpatine, and I think that's a bit of a missed opportunity. Like, if you want to have him unleash the Force lightning and like get Luke one time, and then like just keeps talking shit and starts shooting him down again. If Luke was to just like pick up his lightsaber and just start using that to block it for a little bit, that would have been something at least. And then Palpatine could have just ramped up the power and overloaded him and then started torturing him. I just wish there was a little bit of some kind of confrontation between Luke and Palpatine. Some will say that Luke's fight with the clone Palpatine in Dark Empire makes up for that, which granted, yeah, it kind of does. But I haven't seen or read Dark Empire, so I can't fully comment on that. But yeah, I just wish there was something. But other than that, oh my God, Return of the Jedi is a fucking masterpiece as far as I'm concerned. And it is also one of my favorite films of all time. It's the one that I enjoy the most rewatching. I think it is the most rewatchable film of the entire Star Wars franchise. There is near nonstop action all throughout the movie. Yeah, the opening 43 minutes of the movie at Jabba's palace, rescuing Han Solo from Jabba the Hutt, is awesome. There's so much special effects. It's a Muppets episode, or it's like a Muppet special. There's so much puppets, so many animatronics, so much practical special effects, and Jabba the Hutt himself is kind of an underrated, like, big epitome of the power of practical special effects. Like, how much puppetry and animatronics went into Jabba the Hutt alone is nuts. The Rancor, fantastic monster, looks cool. The effects on it are great. It's like a nice little subtle homage to Godzilla, which I appreciate. Yeah, the opening 43 minutes is awesome. Love it.
Salacious Crumb. Oh!
Shut up. Yeah, there's action scenes are all fantastic. The music is also really good. The two pieces of music that I really attach to is the one that's really subtle. It's like a really distorted version of when Darth Vader dies and like Luke hangs his head in sorrow. It's kind of subtle, and if you're it's almost like a bleak and you'll miss it moment, but I still think it's really good. It's kind of haunting. But the music that plays when Luke gets all never
here. If you will not turn to the dark side, then perhaps she will. Never! Oh, shit. No, wait. Okay, Luke, time out.
Yeah, that piece of music that plays when Luke defeats Darth Vader is really good and really haunting and kind of spooky. Love it. And speaking of which, I strongly prefer the lightsaber duel between Luke and Vader in this movie over the Bespin duel.
Really? Your opinion's changed?
No, I've always thought this. Partially because I like Luke's lightsaber more than his blue one, but I think the choreography is much better, and I like the emotional impact, and I like the stakes. Like, this isn't just some dude trying to kidnap a guy and use him for his own benefit. In this movie, it's a conflicted father trying to protect his child, and I really relate to that, especially now that I'm a dad. But even then, I've always just thought the emotional impact of this movie was much stronger, and that's what made the fight itself much stronger. Like, not only can you see the conflict in Vader, but you see the conflict in Luke too. Like, he's just trying to hold back because he doesn't want to hurt his father, but he's, just still defending himself. And then you have Vader, who's just putting up a front and putting up a mask for Palpatine. So that real strong conflict of interest is really good. And overall, I just think this is the most epic of the original trilogy. It has a fantastic finale. I mean, yeah, it kind of does rehash elements of A New Hope a little bit. I just think they're done better. I love the Ewoks. I think they're hilarious, and watching these little furry bastards tear apart stormtroopers is hilarious. And watching Ewoks and Chewie commandeer that little ATST is really funny, especially with oh, and something I forgot to mention about Force Awakens real quick. I think Force Awakens might be the funniest Star Wars movie. But this one's right behind it too. Yeah, what's not to like about the Return of the Jedi? And I also think it might be the most satisfying finale to a trilogy. Return of the King is really close, but Return of the Jedi, I think it wraps up the storyline. Now there is room to do more, but I just think it ends its story on the perfect note. It's all wrapped up. The Emperor is dead. The Empire is defeated. Darth Vader / Anakin Skywalker is one with the Force. Luke has found his family, and he's achieved his lifelong goal, escaping Tatooine and becoming a Jedi. I just think it's the perfect end to the perfect movie. Love it.
Huh. All right. Well, my number one, and it's still the best. And, you know, I know it's so cliche, but as a fan of classic films, my number one is the OG Star Wars. And yes, this is a Japanese version. It's the original. I have always been fond of it since I was a child. I have always respected it as one of the defining cinematic classics. Like, the fact we're getting it's turning 50 next year. It shows a legacy unlike any other. It's probably one of the last of the great, I would actually say this is one of the last of the great classic movies of that era. Because it did begin the franchise era of cinema.
Alien's probably the last.
It is a monumental film that has stood the test of time. The fact we're getting a re-release and we're finally getting the original theatrical cuts from Lucasfilm, and apparently they're going to be doing a 4K box set, and also, from what I heard, this is the print that will be put into the Library of Congress for film preservation. Something that George Lucas, he has always offered them, but it has always been the special editions. And for me, the reason why I love this film, it's much like the original King Kong. This is the type of film that it's going to, listen, next year, afterwards, all this, it's going to hit Turner Classic Movies. And because it is I think this and Kong are the definitive classic movies. There is something about the original that is so profound, so powerful. It's so simple. It's such a simple movie, too. Everything that's come before and after it have just been nice expansion packs. But for me, this is the OG. It's up there with, like, the tone is up there with, like, The Wizard of Oz and The Adventures of Robin Hood and Kong and Casablanca and Gone with the Wind and all these great films. There's something about Star Wars. No, I will not call it A New Hope. That is profound. I have always appreciated this film. There's a reason why I have the 1997 special edition Darth Vader New Hope cup. It's something so perfect. Like, I'm going to quote out, what's that show? The Boys. It was perfect. It is perfect. Peak cinema. I don't know what else to say. I've talked about it all. It just brought about what we have today. Star Wars is just awesome. It's awesome. It's perfect. Peak cinema. My number 2 favorite film of all time. Number 2. But there you go. There's my number 1 favorite Star Wars movie. Wow, this was longer than my episode 3 review.
Bitchin'. Alrighty, so that's my first big video of this new year. I think we started off on a pretty positive note. So, Jack, you got anything to plug?
I mean, obviously, check out my Star Wars reviews. We just wrapped up the prequels last month. It's 6 years of weight carried off my shoulders. I feel light as a feather, free as a bird. Fucking fantastic reviews. Coming up on January 30th, I think it's at the end of the month. You can check out my first review of 2026. It will be a review of Inuyasha 4, Fire on a Mystic Island. Afterwards, we will be returning to the Inuyasha vlogs starting in February. Outside of that, I actually am going to be a guest at a convention, a local convention, Action Figure Comic-Con in Toronto at the Japanese Cultural Center, and that will be on January 31st. And I'm pretty sure there'll be a plug or something, whatever. But outside of that, yeah, I've got some smaller projects for 2026. I'm overall still loving Star Wars. In case you're wondering when I'm going to do the sequels, again, give it 5 years and I'll start tinkering with some ideas. But for now, I'm good. Watch the first 6 reviews and be entertained. This guy does an amazing Palpatine. He is fantastic.
I have no clue what I have next in the pipeline. We'll just see where inspiration gets me. But post your comments down below. Let me know what you think. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. Share this video with your friends. Go check out Jackie Boy's channel. And as always, may the Force be with you. And
always.
I'll see you guys in the next video.